Welcome to the Marvel Alliance podcast, where we cover anything and everything to do with the Marvel Universe. From the comics, TV, and movies, we'll go from the Mojoverse to Earth 616 to Queens, New York, in order to bring the Marvel Universe right to you. I'm the man without fear, Chris.
I'm your friendly neighborhood Brent.
I'm the podcaster of Mischief, Travis Snail.
Alliance, assemble. Volume 100. We love you 100. We love you 1000.
I love you 100.
Gentlemen, it's been a ride. It's been a ride.
Yeah, it's honestly it has, but it's also it just snuck up. Really, I feel like when we got to like 70, 80, it's like, oh yeah, 100's coming up, but it's like no, 100's here. It's already happened. It's just time has moved fast. I think it's just good because things have kind of opened up and life is a little bit normal, not completely normal, but things like seeing movies and seeing people again. Where I live, you don't have to wear a mask, so I think time is like moving at a somewhat regular rate. So it's like, man, episode's 100. It just snuck up, but it's a nice goal to have. It's a big one to get, you know.
Yeah, hitting 100 is not easy in the podcast realm. And obviously for me, I took a shortcut because I came in about 42 episodes in. But it's also 1 year since I joined the show. Today is 1 year since I joined the show.
That when you told me that, I was like, man, that's just great timing.
So we got 1 year for me, episode 100. Travis is joining us, Moon Knight episode. Yep. It's a good day.
Morbius this week.
Morbius tomorrow night.
The most anticipated Marvel movie of the week,
of all time. All time.
And did you hear Madam Web is now officially going to be in Morbius? Did y'all hear that?
Oh no!
I've been we can only hope.
Yeah. No wonder why they made a Twitter account. They got to tweet all the space for their own movie when it happens.
They got to do it. Thank you all in the game. We appreciate you joining us tonight. So yeah, we are early, as we've been prepping you for, but again, it's one of those things. Again, we've got that Morbius thing because we're doing it for the people. We are seeing that movie for you all.
Whatever, I'm seeing it for myself. I want to know: is this going to be the train wreck people think it is?
I agree with Chris. I'm definitely seeing it for the people. The podcast never feels like work, and seeing Morbius and Fantastic Beasts later this month is the first time where it's like, man, this is some work. But you know what? I'm hoping to have a good time with it.
You know, part of me, Aaron's like, are you looking forward to seeing us? Well, I'm looking forward to it being part of my tax write-off this year. So, I mean, there's that.
Yeah, exactly. It hurts a little less. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, all right. Well, again, being episode 100, obviously my original co-host with this, Travis, couldn't be held back from this. Plus, also Moon Knight. So, I mean, we're gonna have a lot of fun. I know you've already talked about it on Geekverse and you guys had a great immediate discussion with that.
Oh, I'm gonna be excited to be talking about Moon Knight as much as possible. And plus, like I said, that's what I always missed about doing the Geekverse ones. Are the tired? It's the instant reaction. I always missed about doing the Marvel Alliance one. Was even 24 hours. There's still so much stuff. I miss Crawley completely, which we're gonna get to. There's so much stuff that comes out when you see comparisons, and also it's just been, I know we'll get into it, but it's been fun to wake up to a timeline where I'm in a world where Disney World's like, yeah, Moon Knight's walking the campus, and not surprisingly, but I'm surprised how I've seen so many people tweet out of oh, this is my favorite Disney Plus first episode. I'm like, that's awesome, because Moon Knight, probably 5 years ago, you could go up to say to someone, who do you know who Moon Knight is? They have no idea what you're talking about, no idea. So it's been a fun day just to see all this love pouring out for them. So, and
just people saying this is for some people, this is their best Marvel MCU premiere on Disney Plus. I mean, imagine that, Moon Knight being that, And
that's bold. We've had a lot of great shows so far, so that's why it's been a good day. Marvel Alliance 100, Moon Knight is here, Ooh.
Morbius.
These chat updates are concerning. I feel like I'm a politician when you're starting to lose the race and people are just updating us for the listeners on
I know,
reviews and stuff like that. It's like, oh yeah,
All in the game just said Morbius is starting off with 15% on Rotten Tomatoes. Is that true?
Oh, it's at 16%.
Okay,
now.
Yeah. When we checked before we went on air, it was at 14%.
This is gonna be amazing.
But Vanity Fair gave it a fresh review, so you know what? That's the thing. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, you're using Rotten Tomatoes wrong if you just look at the score. If you click on the thing below, it'll give you an average score of what it has. So remember, don't get mad. It's just a website aggregator. They do nothing.
It is a website aggregator, but people are gonna bitch and moan anyway. But oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's so amazing! This is gonna be. I'm genuinely excited to see this movie.
Yes, it's gonna be fun. But all right, well, let us get to the show notes because we're gonna focus on our Moon Knight stuff that we are genuinely, even more excited about than anything.
I don't know. Ask me on Friday. No.
Well, we are part of the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network with 8 shows coming at you. So on Mondays, we got my show, World's Finest True Believers, alternating bi-weekly with Ranger Alliance. This week, Mr. Travis Hines and I concluded our journey in the Injustice Gods Among Us with year 5. And I just looked at the stats for that one, and that is the fastest one to get to 100 within 3 days at that point of download. So I messaged that to Mr. Hines saying, "Oh, look at you, help me along with this one." So it was a fun journey. I'm very glad he was the one to finally kick me to read this series. So give that a listen, and Ranger Alliance will be back next week. DC Alliance on Tuesdays, superhero discussions on Wednesdays, Star Wars Alliance on Thursdays, Marvel Alliance on Fridays, a walk of the multiverse alternating bi-weekly on Saturdays. And is it this week Slice of Film comes back?
April 25th.
April 25th. Okay. April 25th.
I can officially tell you because you made it a few days ago. So I do have to talk to Katie because if they drop some sort of episode, I know they've been working on, aka I've seen some things in the StreamYards, like introductions to possible new hosts she may have. So there might be some sort of maybe mini episode that gets dropped randomly on a weekend or something. But the official return of it being a bi-weekly show is going to be April 25th. So look out for that. And lots more stuff to come.
Yeah, and joined by her new co-host, Mark and Sarah.
Is that official? Has she put it out there yet?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure if I was speaking out of turn. That's why I was hinting.
Enough other people have said it that I said, well, if they've already broken the seal at that point.
Yeah, it's like when Greg and Hines used to host DC Lions. It's the worst kept secret in the world. Anything in that chat was public knowledge. That's why we couldn't tell anybody Brent was taking over for me because we knew everyone would just leak it right away. Yep. I think Travis has announced this. I don't know. No, I haven't. But now I got to go tweet about it. So,
so be on the lookout for that. If you want to check out some of these shows live, DC Alliance goes live on the Geekverse YouTube channel at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Mondays. Star Wars Alliance goes live at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Wednesdays, and this show typically goes live on Thursdays at 9:10 Eastern Standard Time, and all 3 of those has their own separate solo feed, separate from the GUA feed. And so, that gets there. And then we've got a Patreon. So if you want to throw a couple of shekels our way, we've got 2 tiers. We've got our $1 tier that is our tip jar saying, hey, you think we're doing a good job. And we've got our $5 tier that gives you ad-free episodes, early access episodes, and Patreon exclusive shows. Brent, we dropped an episode this week.
We did.
Yep, episode 3 of We Can Watch This All Day. Yes, Iron Man.
Iron Man. I now get to watch my next one. I haven't watched it yet, but I will be watching it soon because we've got it scheduled.
Yes, we do.
Now, so,
what is technically the chronological order? Is it 2 or is it another one that sneaks in there?
Hulk is next.
Hulk is next one. Yes,
because in 2 he's watching on the screen, right? Okay.
Yep. Two. Yep. Hulk is next at that point, and then 2. So.
Yep.
But yeah, so patrons, we can't do this without your support. So hope you're enjoying all that lovely extra Patreon content we're throwing your way. But if you can't join us on Patreon, we totally understand. But if you can take 30 to 90 seconds and rate and review the Marvel Alliance solo feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever podcast your choice may be, we greatly appreciate it. And last but not least, we want to thank our sponsor, organicpricebooks.com, for all your omnibus collected edition and hardcover needs.
Ooh.
Use that code MarvelGUA at checkout for $2 off every single order. As you're seeing here, we've got some new ones dropping. We've got Spider-Man 2099, the first ever omnibus being issued for that. Recent omnibus, Savage Avengers. You look at that interesting lineup there. Venom, Wolverine, Punisher, Conan. Yes, Conan is in the Marvel Universe. Get ready for She-Hulk.
Good.
Good.
I was worried.
Yeah, you got the illustrious run of Avengers by Busiek and Perez coming back to print.
Good. So
yes,
good.
Very good, very, very good. Nick Spencer's run, the first volume of that is being collected in Omni format. Just a lot of good stuff. And this was a interesting one that is snuck in. The best Marvel stories by Stan Lee omnibus. That is a new thing. All the best stories that Marvel considers to be for Stan Lee. I mean, what better way to celebrate Stan the man? So, but yeah, use that code Marvel GUA at checkout for $2 off every single order. Again, we want to thank Organic Price Books for being our official sponsor. All right, as we've been plugging, we'll plug it one more time. We are going live. You get 2 Marvel Alliances this week on a Friday night. We go live at 9:10 Eastern Standard Time to give you, the people, the review you have been clamoring for almost 2 years now. 2 years, I think.
Gosh, it's been so long.
There's dozens of them. There's dozens of them waiting for this review.
2 years of this movie waiting at that point finally happens. April Fool's Day. Who, as I said before, who's the more foolish? The fools who put this movie out or the fools who are going to be watching it?
This movie was originally scheduled July 31st, 2020.
Gotcha. Well, there we go.
Good
2 years.
God, it's so long.
So we'll be joined by Joe and Travis Hines for this review, and yeah, it's I think so. I think both of them want to join in just because they think they're gonna have more fun in this review than probably watching the movie.
Whatever. This is gonna be like
it's gonna be
Spider-Man: No
epic.
Way Home or something. It's gonna be glorious.
It's gonna be epic. And I noticed something just snuck into the show notes there. You have an announcement, Travis.
Yeah,
apparently.
that was put in there like this afternoon, and the vice principal didn't even notice. He didn't even notice these notes in there. No,
because when I write them, if nothing's being added, I don't think anything about it.
No, there's actually no announcement. I just wanted to put this in here because these guys wouldn't let me. I have to give you guys a big thank you for episode 100. I'm doing this now because at the end, some people might, they're going to be tired. They might not get the whole way. I don't want people to miss this because these guys have done a very, very good job with the show. They made it miles better than when I was hosting because, I'm an average guy. I do my best. But these guys, both separately, I have to thank because you guys don't know, and I'm even speaking to you guys, I mean the GA. I talked to these guys quite a bit about stuff that, bounce things off, things that have affected the GA purposely, like in the long run, especially with the soul feeds around that time. You have things like Brent to thank for some of the ideas that not all mine as far as certain things like drop in the same time. That was all Brent. Originally, the solo feeds, it was going to be a few days later. That was Brent, and it's worked out great. Chris, I remember, and another big shout out to Greg from SES, because none of this would probably happen because I met a lot of these guys through. I met Brent on SES, I met Chris on SES, and Brent was just happened to be on the same time that I was. But with Chris, heard him there, loved his style. So then we started the show together. And I have to thank him too, because before COVID, if people don't know, with Geek First, we were always in person. I did not do any casts like this. I wouldn't really, Greg really had to pull my arm because I'm just like, I just don't know if I can have the same good input that I do not in person. So I would hear here and there, but I did not like the format of like being online and whatnot. But the pandemic happened, so that kind of forced me to do that. But the thing is, like, that was still
a channel.
yeah, that happened. But the good thing was, like, Chris, who was already an expert at doing that, like, gave me lots of reps of doing casts, not like in person, but like it is a different cadence if you've ever done both of them separately. Like even the pauses, the waiting. When you're in person, you can kind of tell when someone's going to stop talking because there's no maybe 5-second delay or something like that, right? But Chris got me through a lot of those pains, and we created a good show. And like I've said before, I hated having to leave. It's something that it has worked out for me benefit life-wise, but at some point in my life, I'll try to wiggle my way back in as a third member once my schedule really opens up, if these guys have me back one day.
Always.
But every time of the month I look forward to doing this. But no, Chris, it was an honor to start the show with you, and I'm glad it's been going as well. And like I said, if I could have had anybody replace me, Brent was the first choice, and both these guys have done a lot of good things for the show, but also just for the network overall. And I thank you guys very much for carrying on the legacy, because it didn't just go out and poof, it just, and I left, and then a couple episodes and then it was gone, which happened a lot of it's 100, it's one of these things like, oh, it's only 100 episodes, but there's tons of podcasts and shows out there that don't even make it to 20, and so I'm impressive that it's happening, and I'm very thankful that people still listen and enjoy. And like December and January was huge, and you guys got Moon Knight and Doctor Strange, so a big thank you to also the listeners. You guys have really propelled the show forward as well, so just a big thank you all around. And thank you for having me back on for 100.
No, well, thank you, and thank you for allowing me to jump onto this and do a weekly show, of which never was something in ever in my podcasting plans at that point. But it's been a lot of fun. It's, I want to thank also the listeners, the viewers at that point, how you guys have and gals have stuck with us during a pandemic where we had absolutely no content necessarily to give you outside of our lovely thoughts.
Yeah.
But you gave us that chance. You stuck with us and you helped us grow this channel and this show. So I really honestly can't thank you all enough for giving us that chance and getting us there, because it is something I look forward to doing every week. And, starting with you, Travis, and I've told this to Brent many times, but it's not meant to boost his ego, because the man's ego doesn't, can get no bigger at that point. But, starting my first actual geek podcast was Fans Without Borders, and it was, a show that I definitely, like many of the Squadcast Network, really enjoyed, but never in my wildest dreams would I dream about thinking to podcast every week with Brent. So it's been an honor to do that, and it's been a lot of fun.
Well, it certainly has been fun, and I remember when Travis first brought this up to me, I had a couple talks with my wife about it and was very protective of my time commitment, which you guys thankfully have been incredibly helpful on. And I am glad to be here. It's so much fun to talk Marvel every week. But you know what? That's enough of that. We got a new show to talk. We got new MCU content.
Yes.
It's been so long since we got
Brent's
new MCU
seething
content.
at the mouth.
We could have had more. We could have had Morbius in January.
We could have, but I mean, Marvel proper, Marvel proper content. Like, we finally got some. It's been so long. We always have to wait so long between projects over here. So
we waited for like a year and a half. We've only been waiting for December. This felt like a
year and a half, and then we had 9 projects last year, and it was beautiful.
Yeah.
But all right, seriously, Travis, Moon Knight. You've been seemingly really hyped for this show. I listened to Geekverse, but for the few listeners who haven't listened to it yet, what did you think about Moon Knight?
I really enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. I will always frankly admit this, that I sometimes feel like the way fans must have felt like in Batman 89 when that came out, that I have a lot of expectations on this show that are not that they have to meet these all, just there's years and years of watching and not watching, reading Moon Knight. I've always said before, I remember it's middle school, like grade 4 or 5, I guess that's maybe still elementary school, but I plugged in Marvel Alliance, and that was before I had read Moon Knight, and Moon Knight was a character. It's like, who is this guy? And I remember it was the whole, oh yeah, he's White Batman and stuff like that. And that's what I'm happy with this show, to show really the concept of like anybody that thought that goes right out the window, because it right away establishes, no, this is not that type of character. But I did really enjoy it. Where I am is kind of like in a letter grade, it's kind of like a B+. There's some stuff that didn't hit with me exactly, but I think this is much like some of the best Moon Knight comics. Specifically, I always shout the 2016 run, where that run I was reading week to week, and it was very, very good. But then when you got to read it all together, it was much better. And this episode was a lot of setting up, a lot of kind of it is very much an origin tale, but you need that. I'm not someone that goes, that we're wasting our time. It's like, I know most of this beginning beat to beat, and even then there's changes, right? Stephen Grant's the main character, but I thought it was a really good start. I was wondering, like, okay, how is the GA and like this, and obviously Twitter is not the GA, but there's tons of people that go, hey, I never heard of Moon Knight, tuned into it, loved it. So I think they did a good job. I have said this a few times before, that I think the back half is the parts I really like, because the show starts to get a little more weird, and I think we're definitely going that route. But I think it was a really good setup for the world of whoever you want to refer to, Mark Spector, Moon Knight, Mr. Knight in the future, Stephen Grant, just this whole world encompassing of Moon Knight. I think they did a really good job. I'm a big horror guy, so I like some of the horror elements. It's funny, when me and Chris covered this early on, those Indiana Jones vibes, or like the Mummy vibes, I like them so far as they are meshing in the show. I remember when I heard that the first time, I was like, I don't picture like Moon Knight as like this fun going, like, very charismatic type of guy. And he's not in a sense, but I get what they're kind of going for. So I really enjoyed it, and I'm excited to see where it goes. I think there's a lot to do in 5 episodes, but I think it was a really good start that I think when I see them all, I could watch at the beginning and really, really enjoy even more so.
Yeah, this was one that again, in year 2 of Disney Plus, their first one out of the gate's going to be Moon Knight. So it's just one of those things like, man, Moon Knight is a character that, like we said, is very horror based, very kind of, more quote unquote mature at that point. So I was very curious. And as I saw more and more of the trailers, that okay, we're really kind of leaning into this darkness and the idea of, who in this case Steven is with DID at that point. I really enjoyed it. I like that. Unlike a lot of Marvel TV shows that we've gotten a little bit of criticism from, like, oh, who's the real villain? Who's the thing? Like, we have our villain right up. We have our main antagonist villain right up front. We don't have to wait 3 or 4 episodes to see the costume. We've got the costume. So we do have a lot of questions, and I'm okay with that in the first episode. Was it my favorite episode of all the Disney Plus shows? It's not there, but it's definitely in my top 3. Just because of how they kind of set up a lot of different things, and I'm okay wanting more. Now, I think that this show is, would I have loved a double drop at that point? Sure. I think for this one, I think a double drop, once we see that second episode, I'll be sure of saying, man, this is one I might have to recommend. You have to watch the first 2 episodes and then really be able to see if you're into this or not. Kind of like, I can't recommend just saying, oh, all you need to do is watch 1 episode of WandaVision. You're totally going to get it. That's just not possible with that show. So, but really enjoyed it. Brent, what are your non-spoiler thoughts?
I was really happy with this. It definitely did some things that were different. I know a lot of people are like, oh, every time a movie comes out, the TV show, the reviewers say it's nothing like we've ever seen from Marvel. There's a reason for that, because it's true so often. And again, this is true. We haven't seen anything like this from Marvel. It's great. I obviously know about the character. I've read a number of his comics. I follow along with the trailers and some of the news. I know what we're getting into. My wife famously does nothing, wants no part of any marketing whatsoever. I'm not even 100% convinced she knew what the character looked like. And she goes into this, and at the end of it, I'm like, what'd you think? Because I really wasn't sure. She said she liked it. She thought it was interesting. She thought Oscar Isaac did a good job. I think he did a fantastic job. His accent, I've seen some people criticizing it. I've seen some people who love it. This is going to sound so weird. I find it really calming. Like, just the way his accent is really calming.
You want a Stephen Grant ASMR video?
I have a theory on that, of his voice. I have a theory on that, but I'll save that for when we get into it.
Just some of the way that they showed us his DID, showed us that, he is, at least at this point, 2 different people. Right off the bat, I'm thinking, man, Marvel is all about these variants. There's all kinds of Lokis running around and all kinds of Spider-Mans. This is not multiversal, but it's still Oscar Isaac playing multiple versions of himself effectively. I'm like, oh, that's kind of a twist on it. I hadn't thought of that until after today, after watching the episode. Is it my favorite episode 1 of a Disney Plus show? No, I think I would still give that to Loki, but it was a good one. And at the end, I was like, man, I kind of wish they pulled a Hawkeye and dropped 2 episodes, because I'm ready to see what's next.
Well, that's what I'm interested to see, and I can't wait because my lady has not watched it. We're gonna watch it tonight. I'm excited to talk to her, talk to my sister, because I think there is gonna be the first 15 minutes is like almost any superhero origin, right? You meet the person, you kind of see some of their flaws, they're kind of down and out, something like that. But the last 15 minutes definitely starts to kind of present those mystery box ideas. Okay, who's the mother? Who's the like? I would love to see somebody that watched this Marvel show who had no idea about the different personalities and is just trying to figure it out as it goes along. So I think it does present a lot of good. Okay, what could this mean? What could this mean? Even the villain. It's with the cult like kind of status they have going on. Like Chris said, we know the villain right away. I like that because we've done so many. That's been one of my critiques about the Phase 4 early on Disney Plus shows, that we had quite a few. I don't know. You had Hawkeye, you had Falcon Winter Soldier, you had WandaVision of, who is the big bad? They're hiding. And most of the time, whether it's because of comic knowledge or the way the show is portraying it, we kind of figured it out. So it wasn't this big reveal, right? This is literally, the show started with the villain right away. It started like, okay, this is the big bad, and you got Ethan Hawke, who they don't give him much in this episode, but he's really creepy. So that's a pro,
Yeah, it's like, I'd say let's take our first ad break so we can get into all the spoilers. Hopefully, kind of see how far we can take it at that point. So, all right, as you know, listeners, these ads help keep the lights on the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. We don't get to choose what ads come on, and they can be a bit loud, so I'm going to give it a 3 count before they come on, so you can turn that volume down. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. And we are back. So, kind of starting off, one thing I noticed throughout this episode is and we saw this through the trailers, but in this first episode, and I think, who was it in the chat? Where was
all in the game said
All
about
in the
the
game.
main trailer shots.
Yes, main
Mhm.
trailer shots, like we're all, yep, there we go. All of them a lot of them from the first episode, and that's definitely key. There are some things we didn't see, but that's okay. But you're
Mhm.
right, most of them was from that. But the motif of mirrors, and it's
Yeah.
literally, it's whether it's literally staring into one while looking at other personalities that are staring back at him, or using it like you think you're looking at a reality when it's really a puddle, like walking in the museum, walking away from the street performer, getting ready for the date, and he has a mirror with all three sides. And at the end of the episode, with the bathroom full of mirrors, like, what is reality? And they really play with that a lot in this show, because when he blacks out so many different times and he's left with like bodies standing around him, it's just like, oh, please tell me we're gonna see. I won't be upset if we don't see kind of like what ended up really happening, because again, our imagination knows, okay, he kicked crap out of those guys.
Mhm.
But it would be cool to kind of see that transition, from the past. I don't need a whole episode, but it would be kind of fun to see that.
I found it very almost disorienting, not knowing like what happened. It's like it seems to be these times of like a heightened, like he goes into fight or flight mode, and when he does, he sort of does both. He like this, Stephen Grant does fly away effectively, so Mark can come in and do the fighting part of it. And it'd be cool to see. And I think it's inevitable that by the time this episode 6 is over, we will see Mark in action, right? Like we will see it. But having him just like, the camera starts to flash and his head bounces back and forth, and then it suddenly, his hand is bloody as he's beating up all these people laying on the ground around him, or he's suddenly driving a van backwards. I thought it was really, really cool. And I had seen a couple reviews say like there wasn't a ton of action in this episode. Technically true,
Yeah,
but I guess, but I don't feel like I was missing it. You know what I mean? I did have a coworker who watched it this morning tell me he wanted to see those fights, but I think he, by the time this is done, we will see plenty of brutal Moon Knight action.
Yeah, and I honestly, because I've seen that a few times too, I didn't feel that way, because I felt like the first episode of Loki is pretty docile. It's more about him getting captured and stuff. WandaVision, there's no act. There's a guy that chokes. That's your action scene in WandaVision, So it's just like, and that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying it needs action, but I was actually quite surprised that we were getting that car scene when we were talking about the main trailer shots, that car chase on the bridge or just whatever, the highway. I was surprised we're getting that in this episode, even some shots. And we kind of all do that, right? People that are listening to this podcast or fans of the show, or even us, there's times where it's like, okay, I saw that in the trailer, you slowly tick it off. Okay, like what is left that I haven't seen? And the good thing is we got a lot of that out of the way, whether it was the villain in the crowd, like talking to people, him driving. The very first, I think it's smart that, okay, we've seen it a bunch, right? Of the whole Moon Knight's beating up monster and turns around to the camera. But I do love that was the end of episode 1, because I feel that that wouldn't have been, we would have just kept waiting and waiting. Like Chris said, we got the suit in episode 1. I do think the reason that happens is because I think it will be, maybe other than the finale, be used sparingly, the actual suit part, because I am interested the moments when, obviously this is some powerful creature coming at him, but when is the moments he needs to turn into Mark, who is a mercenary who can't handle himself, versus when the moments he needs to turn into Moon Knight, like when does his brain differentiate that? And I feel like the Moon Knight parts are going to be like, okay, this is when threat levels at like the, not Avengers level threat, but the kill Mark Spectre threat, we're bringing out Moon Knight for this. So that's what I'm excited to see, how much they use the costume. But I'm honestly fine if they don't, because like I love the costume. It looks great. It's actually one of my favorite MCU costumes, because it just has such a clean but almost old looking style to it. But for me, the stuff I liked the most was him dealing with the personality stuff, especially near the end when he woke up, thought he was going on this date, thought it was Friday, he's chained to the bed, like all that stuff. That's the stuff that I'm really enjoying for it.
Yeah, and how the episode starts off, we start off from the perspective of our antagonist / villain, Arthur Harrow. The song that's playing is by Bob Dylan, called "Every Grain of Sand." And the song, I'm a Dylan fan, but I remember either he said it or his brother said it, that this was when Dylan had actually become a born again Christian, and it takes us on a journey through spirituality and his journey back from his lowest point in his life. So it really applies to a lot of times to what we're dealing with Steven in this case. Now in the comics, Arthur Harrow is a very minor character in Moon Knight's history. You know, he's a scientist that carried out human experiments during World War II and was given funding to continue this through the latter part of the 20th century. Moon Knight ended up putting a stop to him.
He's like a cliff note. He's very minor. Yeah.
And so in the show, it's made him into a cult leader, and is very much, quote unquote, as we'll get into later, the hand of the avatar, the new avatar of the Egyptian god Amit. And Ethan Hawke has said in interviews that he created this Arthur as a David Koresh-like leader, who, those of you who don't know history, he put himself as, quote unquote, the final prophet, which led to him and his little group in Waco, Texas, and led to an FBI shootout and destruction at the Waco siege. So again, he's giving those vibes, but you know, it's very clear in this episode that he's willing to carry out violence, and not only that, but he's putting glass in his shoes, which very, very creepy. And you know, it's one of those things that, you know, it's a religious penance, you know, explaining why he needs the cane, because again, he's walking with glass in his shoes, but it's also hinting towards a violent past, similar to fire walking, to show the devotion to his god, showing his devotion to Amit. So.
And I think we've talked about this before, but we are theorizing like, okay, is this Arthur Harrow? Is he going to be that Arthur Harrow, or is he going to be like when they kind of combine some villains? And I think it was either today or yesterday, there was an interview that came out with the showrunner. It said the reason they didn't do Bushman is because that's like the only Moon Knight villain people kind of know, right? If you know anything about Moon Knight, it's Bushman. That's about it. And to me, it was kind of insinuating, one, if we ever want to do more, Bushman's there. But two, like, we can have some fun exploring some other routes. And the good thing is, when you have a guy like Ethan Hawke, he's a guy in the past that's spoken a little negatively of superhero stuff, right? So I feel like to get him on board, you kind of have to let him, you know, maybe have the role be his own. And when you have a character that's been in only a few issues and not much backstory, they can kind of do what they want with him here, and no one is gonna, like, there's no Arthur Harrow fans right now tweeting at Ethan Hawke being like, you ruined Arthur, like he's supposed to be like this.
Arthur's
I don't know. I mean, there's probably one guy pretending to, at least.
Oh, 100%. A petition on change.org. But yeah, I like all the culty stuff is good. It's not good, but it's good for the show as far as a villain. And I was surprised how quickly they even got into his powers. Like when we see, you know, his tattoo moving, he sucks the life form out of someone. I thought they might withhold that a little bit, but no. First 15 minutes, this is a super powered villain.
And I think one of the other reasons I heard today was one of the reasons why they didn't also use Bushmaster is because it comes off as very similar to Killmonger.
Yeah, 100%, which is true. So I think that if they ever use Bushman, they're going to have to probably change some stuff for a lot, because he is vital to. And then they could just have him in Mark's origin, and then he dies off, and you never see Bushman again. You know.
Sure. Yeah.
So what do you think so far about Arthur Harrow?
Right. He's really, really creepy. Just that's opening with the glass, like it's like, okay, he's doing some sort of ritual, and then I'm like, damn man, do you do this every day? You get some fresh glass in it. You're wearing sandals. Some of it's gonna fall out. But I did hear an interview. I listened to a couple interviews with the directors. I want to say, I think this was on Empire, but in one of them, he mentioned that they originally had that plan for episode 2 and liked it so much they decided just to move it up to the front.
I mean, it sets up. It's a different opening for, you know, starting off with our villain for the show at that point, but it kind of establishes that this guy's out there, and this guy is not one necessarily to take lightly, because he's a special type of crazy. So.
And like we've talked about before, there's so few MCU shows, like lots of them have done the kind of hiding in the villain. I don't think any of them have started with the villain so far. I would have to think, like, What If knows Captain Carter. I'm trying to think. Hawkeye did not.
I mean, I guess you can kind of say Loki did.
Yeah, true, sense. Of course. Yeah. But he was the hero in the end, you know? So it's something that kind of sets it apart. And plus, I think if you are a viewer and you have no idea, because I think it's smart that when they start with the show, okay, yes, Stephen Grant is tied to the bed, But that could be anything, but just that's a little thing, right?
That could be anything.
That could be anything. But like
different kind of TV image.
Yeah,
Boy,
exactly.
I was about to say we're getting kind of.
But after that, he's just his regular life, and he's kind of down and out, right? He's looking for luck. I think it's smart to put that scene up front because if anybody's just, I'll check this show out. They have this guy who's putting glass in his shoes right away. That catches your attention because even if you're just watching Stephen Grant the whole time, you're thinking like, why did that guy put the glass in his shoes? And why is he like? I think it is a very like smart opening if you weren't the way because I was always wondering with Stephen Grant. I thought we would meet him first, but I was like, what if there's a chance we meet Mark or Moon Knight very quickly and it jumps to Stephen Grant and you kind of forget about that. So the very beginning of the show isn't too action heavy, isn't too trippy. It's very just, hey, this is Stephen Grant. You know, he's calling his mom. He's taking this girl out for steak. So I think it was smart to start off with something creepy, kind of a head scratcher. So you might stick around for anybody that's just trying it out.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say I was thinking about the whole action complaint and the lack of, lots of exciting action. And I'm like, you're right. WandaVision didn't have much. Loki didn't have much. What If had some. But live action wise, like really Falcon and the Winter Soldier is the only one that had any real action set pieces. They had an amazing shot with the Falcon. But I'm like, there wasn't a ton in this, but it seemed to be kind of on par for the rest. And again, it's like, we are getting 6 episodes of this. The director also said he kind of views them in 2-episode blocks, or like episodes 1 and 2 are a movie, and 3 and 4 are a movie, and 5 and 6 are a movie, which is interesting because he didn't direct 2 and 4. He did the others. But I don't know. Like I think the amount of action in this was fine. I think there was plenty of it there, and I think we just got a hint that there's going to be more to come.
Yeah, I mean, let's get into our protagonist with Stephen Grant. Now, very much different from the comics. In the comics, Stephen Grant is kind of the funder and the millionaire playboy that is funding basically Mark's operation at that point. And I've heard a lot of different things. I think one of the reasons they decided not to do that was because then it falls into the whole idea of he's Bruce Wayne basicit.
100%.
They flat out said that. They absolutely said that.
Yeah.
So there we are. So again, I'm okay with that change just because it is what it is at that point. But like you said, waking up in the bed, all preventing, tied up, the door latches, the tape on the door to prevent him out from escaping, which we all know at that point. Later on we see that's done absolutely nothing to prevent Mark from coming out.
Yeah, no joke. And all the sand so he can know like footprints and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm like, man, you go through a lot of sand, buddy.
And we will come to later understand, again, he's suffering from dissociative identity disorder, which will continue to go as DID. In the comics, it's later revealed that Khonshu did enter Mark's mind, and he was responsible for all these split personalities in a plan to weaken Mark so he can take full control of them.
I love comics.
And yeah, exactly, comics. I think in the show, Stephen is a separate. I've said this before in the show. I really think Stephen is a separate identity that Mark is now using because he is hiding out because something has gone completely wrong, and he is using Stephen to hide out at that point.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong, and that's going to be interesting because if he created that personality, that's Mark having a lot of control, right? But a lot in this episode, he was talking him down, especially that last scene, right? If you got to give me control, you'll let me take over. So there are some differences, and that's the thing where it's like I'm completely fine with as a Moon Knight guy that, okay, yeah, I understand always, okay, he's Marvel's Batman, right? You take away things that with his personality. Batman, you can definitely argue, is suffering from a lot of mental health, but it's not the same thing Mark is going through. But the billionaire thing, yeah, that is. I was the tad bit of hope when he was working at the museum. I was hoping he was going to mention he was working on a script or something like that, because that's some of the funnest thing is Stephen Grant's a movie producer, and I was hoping for like a little Easter egg that he was maybe like an aspiring writer or something like that. I'm still holding out for that, but I won't hold my breath. But I don't think you're wrong with that one. What interests me is because he's in posters, he's in images. We know that Mr. Knight is in this. Once they introduce that concept, that's when I think we're going to have the answer of like, okay, who is pulling the strings right here? Because Mr. Knight usually is the guy that calms all the personalities and can figure it out to some extent. So that's why I'm interested to say, okay, yeah, was it Mark that created it? Was Steven just splintered off because maybe Mark just had so much pressure. But I think you could have a good theory because it feels very much like a spy undercover that created a personality. But he got so deep in it that he literally became that personality. It's not just a cover. It's he has a whole different life.
Well, that kind of answers a question I was wondering is like, is one of these personalities more dominant? Is one of them like, which one's the original? Which one was first? Who, if any of them have more control than the others, who is it?
Well, I think, going to that line, why Mark's trying to fight Steven at this point. I don't know. We don't know how long Steven has been the lead. Or I'll take a line from Doom Patrol, the primary at this point. So we don't have a time period of when. And I think as we get closer, as we start getting more episodes, we'll figure out more about Mark and things like that. But you made a comment about the accent. I think this is, if my theory holds, Mark being the original, this is Mark's version of what he thinks the accent should be, at that point. So that's why it's a little muddled, at least in my American opinion, for what it's worth.
No, it's soothing. It's soothing. Just listen to it when you're having, calm, like you're just going crazy and you need to calm down. Just, it's very soothing. Not to him, but to you.
Now you see that Rubik's Cube that's next to him completed, and we see later on when he's trying to get to sleep again, he's tossing it and trying to, and he's not being able to solve it. I think it'd be a clever goof that it's Mark that ends up solving it at that point, and he's the one that puts it aside, and Mark's the one that gets it done. But Steven has a very bad memory, obviously, and I love it that his pet is a goldfish named Gus, and goldfish memories are notoriously, supposedly very bad. So what better pet for him to have? What do y'all think about him leaving messages for his mother?
Well, before you go there, regarding Gus, I didn't even think of what struck me about Gus.
You want to have a conversation about
I
Gus?
do.
Regarding Gus, let's talk about
what struck
is he or
me,
not Mephisto?
No, he's definitely Mephisto. That's confirmed. No, the thing about Gus is he was like upset, like really upset when he thought that his fish was gone. And I'm thinking about it, I'm like, he sees himself as damaged, right? Like he talks about like, if I get a girlfriend, I can't bring her home and have like, like chains on my legs. That's a red flag, which I thought was hilarious when he said that. It's like he sees himself as damaged. He sees Gus as damaged because he only had one fin, right? I really want to know what happened. Like, what is the deal with this fish? Why is presumably Mark going in there and like getting him another fish? Like, did something happen to it? I really want to know about Gus. I know it's ridiculous, but I'm like, they put out a character poster to it. I feel like there's something to Gus.
I feel like, and that's what Chris was referring to. I do feel like even if it's not a whole episode, we could get a portion of an episode where it is from Mark's point of view and it kind of recaps what happened that day or that night. And maybe someone attacked him in that apartment and the original Gus met his end at untimely fashion, and I got to replace this fish. But of course, Steven be like, that's not my fish and everything like that. And yeah, before we moved on to the Mum 2, I want to put one thing that Chris was saying about the personalities and it's the same thing you used, Brent, who's more dominant. I bet at one point maybe Mark was more dominant, but I think Steven accidentally took over as dominance because Conchu many times like, oh, this guy he won't butt out, like he calls him the dumb one, right? Like he keeps getting in. You would think if Mark is like Chris at the primary, that wouldn't be happening. Why would Steven just be slipping in and out? I think that's because maybe he went so deep and he could create another personality that it's almost taken over. And maybe there's probably a part of him that maybe wants to be that personality of like a normal guy, not fighting for his life, not dealing. Because Mark, if you look back in his history in the comic book, he's seen some really messed up stuff. He was a mercenary for many years, so that's where it's like maybe there's part of him that like wishes he could just be Stephen Grant, and not have to worry about this stuff. And he wishes he has a mom that is clearly not dead, or is clearly really dead, or a plant or something. Because that mom unfortunately is she ain't real. That he's calling nobody,
And who do you think's sending those postcards?
Yeah, that it has to be Mark, right? It has to be him literally just sending him to himself, Or my other theory was that because we saw his number come up on the phone, that Frenchie could be helping him as well, right? If for some reason Frenchie understands the situation. For people that don't know, he's like his Alfred, but he's Alfred in the sense like they're the same age. It's just he's his helper. He's like he's a friend. They have a very he
was there during the transformation in the comics.
Yeah, so like if they go that route again, he might have some better understanding. Like, okay, I do need to help you with that. He's his guy's in the chair. That's the best way. Guy in the helicopter sometimes, So I could see Frenchie being the guy helping with the postcards, the Gus replacements, stuff like that.
we see Steven trying to go to his job at that point. He's missing the bus, but he's working in a museum,
Classic.
and he's talking to that little girl. That when I was waiting, oh, good, the awkward, creepy guy is talking to the little girl. That no one's gonna think that's odd, but I like the conversation when he's talking about the afterlife and the belief system, and she responds, does it suck for you being rejected from the field of reeds? And it's very much like Moon Knight, because Moon Knight's been saved from death by Khonshu over the years, and the gods resurrected him countless times.
Mhm.
So it's very interesting. But we meet the boss Donna, who thinks very low of Steven at that point.
Stevie.
I don't like her. I don't like her.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone does. But how about this date that walks up, like the tour guide that walks up and say, hey, we're meeting at 7. Okay, who do you think made this date? Because I don't think it's Mark. Because Mark's got the American accent. Stevie's got the British accent. I think it's Jake.
It could be Jake, but yeah, and that's because you guys covered this last week where I'm so used to like Jake is like the New Yorker, like I was like, hey, like Spider-Man, like so he could just be like that's what I think of when I think of New Yorker. Hey, Spider-Man.
I've seen that.
Yeah, but no, it could be because he could have that accent. But again, the thing is like, then does that mean Jake is in on this? Does he know? And that's what's going to be interesting. And does a fifth personality needed for 6 episodes? I don't know. And the thing is, can Mark, even if he's the primary, could he put on a fake British accent? And if that's the case, that maybe he's having some fun, but at the same time, I feel like he's there on a mission. So I don't know if him creating a date's a good idea. So even stuff like that, like who did the date, it's going to be a fun mystery box of like, how did this happen? And it was fun how he just had kind of no idea. He's like, oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm free and stuff like, why are we doing this? Oh, you asked. And like, great.
Aren't you vegan? Yeah, we can eat salad.
Salad,
Well,
bread.
Yeah. And by the time he gets there, he gets the steak and just wants the good bits, right? He just wants
Yeah.
the best steak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What did y'all think about that little tease of the when Steven's making the comment of the Ennead, the Egyptian supergroup of gods, and saying like, hey, they're advertising 7, but there's really 9. I think there's been a lot of rumors saying we're going to see some of these gods in live action too.
I have wondered.
Yeah, I think it could make sense. I don't know if it'll be. I think if we see it here, could be more minor, something, and not to the same extent as it was in Loki with the TVA being like what was their actual name? The TVA up the Wizard of Oz people that weren't real. The timekeepers at the time.
Time Lord,
I could see it being something like that, but them actually being the real things and talking to them. There's like Chris referred to at the beginning, there is a constant battle for Khonshu and Mark over the soul of this body, and there could be at one point where he has to have some sort of council meeting or something with these other gods. So I think that's possible. I'm not gonna say for sure. Again, for me, that's where a lot of the show I have to wait and see. I know right now there's tons of just like this is a mini series, but if it is just kind of this is it, and we don't get a season 2 or a movie in a while. There's only so much I want them to do, and I want them really to fluff out Mark. Where I think you could wait on the gods to really reveal them down the line, even in like a Midnight Suns or something like that. But I think we've all worked for a Donna for sure all in the game. It's definitely been there. That's many stories there.
Let's kind of flash into, we got to mention that he's so lonely. He's talking to a mime street performer who. I was like, man, they're making. I mean, it's got to be the Easter egg that he's looking like Crawley from the comics, and then I find the tweet that has the credits, and he is listed as Crawley.
Yep. Yeah. I did not catch that when watching it.
No, because it was gold. It threw me off. I thought he was just like a performer like they have in Vegas. I'm just like, okay, just this guy in London hanging out. But yeah, that's a nice little tidbit.
And
there.
I like he's looking out for him, saying, "Hey, make sure you leave a tip." But how about we flash forward to when the kind of the big set piece is he wakes up in Germany with a broken jaw, and we finally hear the voice of Khonshu, and that this whole sequence there. I mean, this was a lot of fun. This really, I think this is where the episode really started. Like, oh, okay, now we're getting some serious stuff here. We don't know he's seriously out of his element.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that jaw looked really, really painful, but it was. I mean, that was kind of a fun action sequence just to see him try to how how Steven, how he reacts and stuff, how he handles these situations that he is, at least as far as he knows, very much not built for.
Well, and what's interesting to me is like we talked about, okay, you have to begin with a little intro of the villain, but then it's pretty straightforward show. They're giving you little hints of, okay, something's not right with this guy, something's going on. But still, this was the full on kind of coming out party of, okay, things are about to get really weird and you got to kind of buckle up. Because again, I would love to talk to people that have no idea, but I like Marvel. I just want to see what this new hero is like. And when he's flashing, personalities, he's literally jumping from one place to another, to the cult leader, to running away, to in a truck. And I really liked the kind of almost just spacing out that he would do. He'd almost like seizure up in a way, and then he would collapse. And then when he came back up, like we talked about, everything's awry and changed. I couldn't put my finger on it last night, and I finally figured it out. Now, I'm still liking it so far. I feel like, again, I've mentioned this last night in Geekverse, where the sound editing might need a little work. But with Khonshu, I think the reason I was maybe not digging as much as I was hoping is I figured out that was giving me Venom PTSD. That's what it was. Is like the way Venom is always like in the movies, where he's like, run, duck, look out. He did that a few times in this, and I'm liking it enough, but I don't. It's strange because Khonshu does kind of, he does bully Mark, but I just don't want him to get too comedic and whatnot. And this is where I will say for me that I'm with other people as well. I mentioned last night, this was some of my more down moments of the finale, because there was some humor with Khonshu, and then I mentioned this before. I didn't like the cupcake battle. I didn't like that move on the guy. And I've said this before. I don't know if it is a COVID thing. I don't know if it's a work related thing, but I think if you had a top 10 list, I'd probably have about 2 or 3 of the worst CGI things in all of Marvel in this phase alone, between this and Pip the Troll. And I did not like much of this highway. Pip, I just wish they had it like a few more months, but I did not like this highway scene with the log truck, lots of the driving, lots of the green screen in the background. It really honestly did take me out of it. And it's one of these things that I get it, because Moon Knight's not a big character, but if we do just get this 6-episode run and that's it, there might be part of me in the end and go, I maybe wish they made this like a big budget movie. Because to me, I know people be like, oh, well, they want to have the shows feel like the movies, right? They want to make them feel grandiose. But I also kind of think like, know your limit and stay within it. And I think that's the thing where if they don't have as big as a budget for the movies to make something like a truck battle look as good, maybe don't get set piece. I think you could still do that set piece of him fighting guys going in and out without him having to drive a truck on the highway, without logs going. Like, he could easily just be in a room somewhere. He could be at a party. He could be at a bus stop. I don't think he needs to be, here, even in a field. So for me, some of the CGI did kind of hurt some of the action for me. And luckily, I'm liking more of the character-based stuff. So whether we get action or not is fine. I got other stuff for action. But the truck driving fight scene was fine, other than the coming in and out. Really enjoyed all of that stuff.
I like what they're doing with Arthur being the avatar of Amit, with being the god that is, meant to judge. And you see it with when people come up and his scales on his wrist go back and forth, judging their soul at that point. But when they're judged to be bad, it kind of hints toward, I've never done a bad thing in my life. Well, you might be doing something later on. And then, sucks the soul, like Mortal Kombat style. But in an Egyptian, religious beliefs at that point, it would be judged, and if you were judged to have a bad soul, and it would eat your heart, and your soul would be kind of aimless at that point. So, I mean, this is a cool way of kind of doing that, and I'm wondering, what is that energy being used for? Are we basically, is Mitt using Arthur as eventually, kind of like we talked about with Khonshu's goal to fully take over Mark? Is this basically Amit trying to, fully take over Arthur and just become on Earth?
Yeah, it's tough in the comics. He always like, they're sometimes working together, and sometimes, like you said, they are looking for just total domination. I got the feeling between how Mark and Khonshu were talking that it's not Khonshu trying to fully take over him yet. I take this as maybe a budding relationship. Yeah. And that's where, like I said, my worries, I don't want to go. I took it more like the Venom and Eddie that we have in the movies right now, of like, okay, they're together somehow. Maybe they need each other. So I think they'll be working together. Maybe we'll get flashbacks of the time they weren't, but I think they'll have the same goal. What about you, Brent?
Yeah, I think you're ultimately right about that. I love the look of Khonshu. His voice, the Venom comparison is a good one. Like for the way he was talking, like almost the mannerisms of his voice.
Yeah.
But what kind of threw me with the voice is it almost sounded too normal for what I was expecting. You know, like when you read when you read the Moon Knight comics, like the letterboxes and the word balloons are always really different for Khonshu, and they're more like what you get from the symbiote voice. You know, like they're all squiggly and they're dark. They're usually like black with white writing or something like that. I was expecting, like this just sounded like regular voice. I was expecting something that went like through a voice modulator. You know, definitely had some little after production done to it audio wise. So his voice was fine. It was just not what I was expecting to come out of it. That said, I'm looking forward to like them just having a conversation. I'm like, just talk. I didn't have the CGI complaints that you did, but I think that's because I was so focused on Steven himself in these moments that the rest of it didn't. But like the cupcake thing, he was just reaching at something next to him. It's not like he's like, ooh, I have a good idea, I'll use cupcakes. No, that just happened to be handy and next to him. But I was so focused on Steven, like his facial expressions. I don't even think I noticed the CGI you were talking about that much, but it just seemed like getting to see him and Khonshu interact more together. Like that is something I think I'm really going to enjoy.
Yeah, especially, I kind of laughed when the music they chose was "Wake Me Up" by Wham.
Yes.
But
Yes.
but you listen to the lyrics, it's very applicable because it says, "My best friend told me that what you did last night left me sleeping in my bed. I was dreaming, but I should have been with you instead." Okay, that's what's going on literally right now. you know, so it's kind of like, Marvel's done this in the past. A lot of shows do this where you put kind of an upbeat song where there's a huge fight. I'm looking at you, Legends of Tomorrow. So it's definitely humorous. Yeah, I can kind of see that. I think when I finally watch it with Aaron, I'll be kind of looking at for the kind of CGI moments. I thought just actually getting to see Khonshu, those little moments where we did see it was just cool seeing Khonshu on screen. That was just kind of really interesting at that point. But Mark wakes up, thinks it's all a dream, but then keeps on seeing the Khonshu, and he finds that, what is that little hidey hole with this phone and the key. We know that's coming back, and Layla on the other end saying, "Why are you talking that weird accent?" How what did she say? She's been calling for months. I'm wondering how that phone still had battery power after months.
I mean, that wasn't like a smartphone or whatever, but well, here's the thing. I say that, but actually at work today, I turned on an iPhone 7, like 3 or 4 of them that have been off for almost a year, and they still had power.
There we are.
I know for a fact they've been off for at least that long, and they still had. Now they didn't all have power. A couple were dead. I mean, but 3 or 4 of them were like 25% still. It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. And that's why, like we talked about months again, then how did Steven kind of maybe slip to be the main one, and then how did Mark get back? How has he got me back on a mission? Because he has a scarab and whatnot. So it's going to be interesting. Again, lots of little questions that I think these ones will answer. I think they will come in a satisfying light, because I think that's a good thing with this. They've alluded to that, like, okay, it's connected to the MCU, but they don't got to focus on doing this connection. You kind of had that with all these shows to an extent, with Falcon and Loki and Wanda and even Hawkeye, where it just seems like, okay, most of these answers are probably going to be within our villain or within the story. I don't think it's going to be alluding too much to, well, if you didn't watch this thing, you would know why this is happening. So, I'm interested to see next week what even just the opening scene. Is it just Moon Knight on the run? Is he still kicking ass of that monster? Is it Mark? Is it back to Steven? Does Steven just wake up in his bed again and think that was all a dream?
Yes.
I don't know. We could really, and that's a good thing with each episode, you really don't know where we're going to start, which that's something that reminds me of WandaVision, where WandaVision had that greatness of every time, like, remember the Monica episode where that just we thought we were getting another episode of WandaVision, and it started with her whole flashback, how she ended up getting into this job, meeting Wu and stuff. So I think this is very similar to that, where it doesn't have to go in a point A to point B. You know, it can kind of be like Brent, how he got to episode 42 Mario style, where you find a tunnel and he went jumped over a bunch of episodes. That's what you can do with Moon Knight. That literally you could jump to probably like the last episode of the show. And we wouldn't even know because he doesn't even know what's going on. And I will say that's one thing I pointed out last night, that it won't last for long because they are starting to put in more supernatural elements. But I like, even at least for this first episode, they're playing up this could just all be in his mind and be a dream, which there's many runs of Moon Knight where that is the case, where he's a vigilante fighting in New York with Daredevil and Spider-Man, and they just think he's nuts. There's no proof actually that he's powered by the moon or any god. They just think he's a guy that's lost it and he's been fighting crime for way too long. So I like that even right now, early on, they're playing, oh, could he just be dreaming? Like I said, I think by 3 you'll see him have to physically fight. Like, I know he fights that thing at the end, but even then you could just have that, oh, well, that's in his mind. Even though I'm sure he's going to come to work the next day and that huge bathroom door is going to be gone. So,
Yeah, I think, let's kind of cut down to that ending where, Arthur basically is trying to, surprises him in the museum. And all these other people are part of the, his little cult at that point. But then, not he wanting that scarab. So then we flash forward tonight, and you got the jackal, which I basically think is the death jackal, which are the guard dogs of the dead, are chasing him down. And I like the idea that, Emmett says, if she were still here, things like Hitler and other things wouldn't have been done. And I said, oh, I like that they're heroes of their own story, because that would totally been, but the idea that when Emmett was betrayed by her former avatar, that this allowed the wicked on Earth to live without fear, and she's trying to get back to that way she can correct that wrong that was done. I wonder if we're going to get that story of who the avatar that betrayed her at that point.
mm-hmm.
Did you when he was saying, like, think of all the wrongs that could have been avoided, Hitler or whatever, did you think they were going to say Thanos then?
I did. Yes.
Oh yeah,
I kind of thought they were. It's like that's the place. That's where they're going to be like, don't forget, we're part of the rest of that. I mean, they know, obviously everyone watching that show knows it's part of it, but I just expected that to be like the connection, because there's going to be something that reminds you, reminds the viewer that, yeah, this is part of the world that the Avengers take place.
Oh, that bus in the background will definitely remind you when that's coming.
Sure.
But what did y'all think of that kind of ending sequence that we get our first transformation? Mark Dissy arguing, I need to take over now. We're going to die if you don't let me.
I want to see the transformation in more detail. Like, we know it's coming because there was a shot in one of the trailers where you see more of it. I want to see more of it, but I thought it was really interesting. And he's like, you need to let me take over. I'm like, what does that look like? Is he like flipping a metaphorical switch? Like, how does he say, like, okay, I'm all yours?
Yeah, I guess it's gonna be something that we will reveal, but I think it's gonna be almost. I guess for Steven right now, it's almost just like a spiritual belief as far as, well, I gotta, I guess, give in to this person because I am gonna die again. That's gonna be, I imagine, somebody's gonna tell him, no, you're giving in to maybe being sick, like you need to get help. You don't have this personality, but yeah, like I said, I thought it was a really good way to end it. I'm happy that was the ending of the first episode, because I think if that was, because we all knew from the trailers that was going to be the first suit reveal, so if we didn't get episode 1, I felt like either if that was in episode 2, you'd have to drop both of them, or we would, because I don't know how else you would end this. I guess you could end some sort of cliffhanger of him finding out it was Mark or something like that, but I think this was a good ending. Plus, it is, if anybody's wondering, if there's some guy out there like, where's my superhero? Well, there he is, Moon Knight. His eyes glow. There you go, Clay. You got your white eyes. He has crescent darts in his chest. That he's
I'm Team White Eyes too. I love it.
I'm Team White Eyes for Moon Knight, because Mark's taking over. But Batman, I don't need no white eyes unless it's action scene, But I thought it was really good ending, and it's like we said, I wish we had 2 episodes, but that's also just, I know I'm being selfish, because I just want to know, because for me, this is when Emily would ask me, hey, who's Moon Knight, what's his origin, that's what this episode was. It was pretty much explaining. There's gonna be more specifics about him getting Khonshu, but yeah, I enjoyed the ending.
Well, we will we'll see what happens next week. Again, I have enjoyed, and I like the model of an episode a week, not just because it gives us content for the show, but it gets us putting out these theories and putting out different ideas of where we think it's going. But yeah, no, it's definitely, this is going to be a very fun and wild ride, and I'm looking forward to, you know, everything we've seen from those that have seen the first 4 episodes have been very positive. So I'm looking forward to a great ride. Now, before we get to our next ad break, I see we have one question, Moon Knight centric.
We do, yes. Let me pull that back up.
Brent wasn't sure if we did.
No, we do. I know we do. I'm just trying to get it pulled up. My internet's been being funky, and
I am
looking
Ron
into that.
Burgundy.
From Truman Burbank, favorite person wants to know what our favorite personality of Moon Knight is in the comics and in this episode so far.
I'm gonna let Travis take one since he is our Moon Knight expert.
Yeah, it's tough because you could just say, "Oh yeah, like Moon Knight," because that is the super right. Honestly, it kind of is because, like I said, I like that he has that Frank Castle light. Like reputation with the heroes, like this guy's kind of where Frankie's like violent, he's just weird, and they don't, you know, Frank's violent, Deadpool's annoying, and Moon Knight's weird. That's the only way I looked at it, you know, where it's like, yeah, he's the brother that brings along, he's quiet in the corner. But honestly, again, because I'm a huge film fan, I really like Stephen Grant in the comic books of the film producer. Like I said before, in 2016, run, it's just a minor spoiler, but because he's on a set, he has a fight with Werewolf by Night, and they get in like spaceships, and they have like a dog fight, like Star Wars style. And because he's picturing this as he's writing a script, you don't know, okay, are they actually fighting on Mars? So there's some really cool stuff, but I get why they got rid of that. So I would say just Moon Knight in general. You know, Mark Spector, he's kind of in the middle. I love Mr. Like they're all good. I guess I could probably just say this, that Jake Lockley's probably at the bottom because he's fun, but he's usually just the taxi driver getting some information, you know. So
what about you, Brent?
Show wise, I mean, I guess I got to go Steven because that's really the only one we've seen, but I really liked him. For the comics, it's a little harder for me. I think I overall like the Moon Knight costume more than the Mr. Knight costume. I like the Mr. Knight one, don't get me wrong, let me be clear. But I think I like the Mr. Knight like personality, and I know there's times when he's more or less the same, but he still acts different. He comes across more calm, more menacing when he's Mr. Knight versus when he's dressed up as Moon Knight, and I do appreciate that.
Moon Knight, he's just there to break some skulls. You know, like Mr. Knight's going to maybe say some things that scare you. You know, like, do you guys know why Moon Knight wears white? So you can see him come. Yeah, exactly. You know, and that's a messed up thing. That's messed up.
You know, again, we can refer to the so-called moniker of who he's supposed to be emulating. So, but no, you know, again, it's right now it's just Steven until we see some more. It's the only one I can really go on, but I'm definitely a Mr. Knight fan, especially after my recent reading of, you know, Warren Ellis's run, Jeff Lemire's run,
Sure,
and then the current run right now that's going on. Mr. Knight has definitely grown to being just a very, we say he's a calming personality, but he's also he can be a very conniving and just a very sarcastic person when it comes down to it at that point.
Yes.
So I do enjoy that because that's my personality. So.
Yeah, and not everyone, and well, this is bad that Chris said because I was about to compare Mr. Knight to a serial killer, but the way I would compare...
Okay, not a serial killer, you know, just trying to...
Some people won't understand this reference, but anybody that has watched the show Hannibal, the TV version of it, I always compared Mr. Knight to the way Mads Mikkelsen plays Hannibal in that show, where he seems like he could be your best friend.
You know,
he seems like he could be your best friend. He's a calming presence, but he could be the worst of them all. You don't know what he is. He's the wolf in sheep's clothing. And sometimes Mr. Knight, that's who you want. He's going to calm down the situation. Okay, this is what we need to do. But there's other times where it's like, I can't trust this guy at all. You know, and that's why I'm excited to see in this show what route they take with him, because it's very rare for him to be this early on. But again, we don't know how long Mark has had this, right? That's what we'll probably learn too, is like, how long has he had these different personalities? Has it been all his life? Has this been just the past few years? Only time will tell.
Yep. So, all right. Well, we will look forward to next week, episode 2. So we are going to take our next ad break. So again, listeners, these ads help keep the lights on the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. We don't get to choose what ads come on, and they can be a bit loud. So I'm going to get 3 count to turn that volume down before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. All right. So just a little quick hit of news this week, just a little sampling at that point as we march towards Morbius. This one was interesting. Black Panther's Ryan Coogler joining Disney Plus Ironheart. This is coming from Extra TV, covering at the Vanity Fair party at the Oscars. They caught up with Ironheart actor Anthony Ramos, who is talking about his joining the upcoming series. He had a lot of things positive to say. Very excited. Of course, you're very excited. You're part of the MCU now. And he said something. He said, gave a rundown of the quote unquote incredible people that are involved in developing this series. He said, "Yeah, that's what we hope there." I said, "I feel blessed. It's amazing. It's an amazing project. Incredible people. Shanaka Hodge and Ryan Coogler are just like a dope squad. Dominique Thorne, and I feel blessed to be grateful. Like, this is the first time we have seen or heard any kind of involvement from Ryan Coogler with this. Outside of, we know Ironheart is making her debut in Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever, but outside of that involvement, we've heard nothing that he was directly going to be involved in the Disney Plus show proper. So that is very interesting. What role is he having? They really haven't said. I mean, we know that he's already inked an overall deal, a 5-year overall exclusive television deal with his company Proximity Media. So the fact that, Anthony Ramos is confirming this, that's, again, I'm looking forward to the show, but I'm looking forward to having Ryan Coogler having a little bit of influence on this as well.
Yeah, it was one of those things that felt like a no-brainer because obviously she's going to be in Black Panther Wakanda Forever. So there's your ties right there. But nice. It sounds like he's not just like an executive producer or something. Sounds like he might be actually having his hands in the cookie jar. Ryan Coogler, I think I can make a case. Like, there's been a lot of great directors in the MCU, but I could make a strong argument, and I probably right now would say, I would personally say he's the best director they have had. So it's one of these things that if you look at Black Panther, that was extreme quality. You're going to bring him. He's already working with the Ironheart character. But this also makes me wonder if we've even kind of talked about this before, that she might be inspired by Tony, but she might also be inspired by the people of Wakanda, whether that was T'Challa, whether that is Shuri, whoever it may be. She's in that movie for a reason, and because of the origins being, okay, she's lots of times linked with Tony, there is no Tony Stark right now, so it would be kind of good to maybe implement that over. But yeah, anytime you it's like cheese. Anytime you add Ryan Coogler to something, it's going to make it better. So I'm all for it.
Obviously,
there's your food reference.
Of course, obviously getting Coogler involved is a good thing. Like, that's great. And it seems to be like he's going to be involved in a project that's not directly Wakandan related, and that's cool too. But then I'm wondering, it's like, they are going to mix things up from the comics and stuff. You think there's any chance that Ironheart is Wakandan?
I wouldn't say no. It's not like so how does that work logistically? So she's Wakandan, she's there, and then she goes. Does she move to New York somehow? Like, that's what I'm trying to place.
They opened up that center in New York. At the end of the first movie, maybe she's connected there.
She's definitely, we know she's attending MIT at the time of the movie. So you're right. I mean, there's been no confirmation necessarily. I wouldn't mind it at all. I'd be completely fine with that. I wouldn't have any problem with it. It'd be kind of cool seeing that. But I'm wondering at that point my idea would be kind of like a little Miss Marvel situation. Like, she is looking up to people like Shuri. She's looking up to the Wakandan. She feels like she has a group of people that she's always felt like the outsider, being as smart and as intelligent and as motivated as that. Now she sees a group of people that have always been that way, that are that she can necessarily relate to and be like at that point. So
I gotta point this out. All in the game says not every black character has to be a connection to Wakanda. No, they have to be connected to Wakanda, and every Spider-Man villain has to be connected to Iron Man. That's the MCU rule.
Every Marvel villain has to be Iron Man. No, seriously, of course.
Is that diversity in action?
Of course they don't have to be connected to Wakanda, but she's being introduced in Black Panther. Ryan Coogler's working on it. I'm gonna go ahead and stand by. That's a reasonable question to ask.
And also on the game, he asked about, do you see him directing Wakanda series or just show running? I see him directing an episode, maybe, perhaps. But also, I don't know for sure. We'll have to find out. There could be a chance he's directing a episode of Ironheart, too. Just like a pilot or something like that. Because if he's involved, and it sounds like Ramos is like like he was the first two people mentioned as far as working with the show. He could have easily directed episode. How many people of Mandalorian just pop in, direct an episode, and they're gone, and then they go on to make their own show, Boba Fett, and ruin Boba Fett. But then no, I'm looking very forward to see what Ryan Coogler can do and stuff like that. And I don't think Brett's wrong, but I don't think he's right. I'm literally a 50-50 where I could see a version of that working. I could see them sticking to it because I could see, okay, she's from New York going to Wakanda, or she's from Wakanda going to New York. Like it does, you could really have it both ways. So we'll find out soon.
And just to be clear, not a prediction. In fact, I would say she's more likely from New York going to Wakanda. More likely she's from New York. She meets, Wakandans there from their outreach center. They're impressed by her, and she is awarded or wins some sort of contest and gets to come back and meet Shuri and stuff and Wakanda. More likely that's what's going to happen. I just started thinking about it, and the MCU does, take twist on characters and combine characters and mix things up. And Ironheart's a cool character and all, but I don't think she's like so mainstream popular that you can't mess with her origin a little bit if you want to.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see that, but that was a nice surprise. And last bit of news, could be very clickbaity at that point, but it's worth a discussion point. The question being raised, is Disney Plus's She-Hulk in trouble? This is coming from the Hot Mic with Jeff and John. They had industry insider, Jeff Snyder, who has written for outlets such as Variety Collider, shared that Marvel Studios may have run into some creative issues with She-Hulk. He said, "I've heard not good things behind the scenes, and I've asked whether it's Moon Knight or Miss Marvel or Secret Invasion or any of these projects. They're always like, She-Hulk is the one that could be a problem. I've heard from people working on it, from actually working on it, are just like, we'll see." I think that's a lot of Marvel things, honestly. And I think that's where they're just like, ugh, this could be really stupid. And like, we'll see. And continues on saying, "I'm sure people are making Guardians of the Galaxy, felt this way, right? And most of the time Marvel pulls it out, but there will come a time when they won't. And their laws of movie making and laws of numbers." It's, again, what little we've seen of it, and we've heard, they're in reshoots, and some people say massive reshoots, massive changes, things like this, but this, again, he has been right sometimes. He's also been very wrong sometimes at that point, but he does have some sources. But it's one of these things where I think this is going to be people say, oh, Moon Knight's very different. It is, and it isn't. This is going to be Disney Plus's kind of first really kind of sitcom, is what they've kind of deemed it as. So that's also, I think you pointed out when I brought this up this weekend with the story. It's just like, they may be, as he's right, doing a Guardian of the Galaxy. Well, it's really different, and we're not sure how people are going to receive it. That's why they're not sure. But that's kind of I'm one of these wait and see before I make judgment.
Oh, I think it's over.
Yeah, the whole thing. Just
it's over for you.
Pack up the MCU. They're done.
It's done.
They talked about this being, like a sitcom, a legal comedy. It is going to be different than other things we've seen come before. It's going to, break the fourth wall, things like that, as something the character is very much known for doing. Deadpool's not the only one known for that. So, sure, the possibility is, like, their confidence isn't as high as it is with, I don't know, like what it would be with the next Captain America movie or something like that. I could believe that, but I'm not gonna buy into this. Oh gosh, it's doomed. It's over. Stick a fork in them. They're done. Like, I saw some reactions on Twitter after this came out, because the track record is on Marvel's side. When they string together 4 or 5 duds in a row, or there's a polarizing movie and a couple duds to go with it, then I'll be more concerned. But after so many hits, I'm not going to be worried about one insider claiming they heard from sources. It's a great way to get traction. So, bash Marvel or say Marvel's in trouble. That's a great way to get the retweets button going.
And that's the thing. So, like, because I'm somebody that used to watch and listen to the Collider. So, like, Snyder does get some stuff right. And he is, like, Chris lists off his credentials. He has worked for big trades before, so he has sources. And this is the thing. I actually believe he's one of the people that he probably did hear this, but that doesn't mean he heard it. Like, he could have heard it from one person, but that could be one person's thoughts, like what we were talking about, right? You could ask someone else in that cast, like, oh no, I think this is gonna be great. It's gonna be the next big hit. But someone else making it be like, I don't know. I guarantee when they're making the first Avengers, there was multiple people that probably went, I don't know.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if this is gonna work. And here's the thing though, we'll see if there's actually, we've heard that before. Where look at Thor: Dark World. That's one where we heard there was multiple problems. They had Whedon come in and rewrite a bunch of stuff. MCU has had problems before. Obviously didn't get to that point in Ant-Man, but look at Ant-Man before they went greenlight. Edgar Wright won't, right? So maybe this could be a situation where in a year from now, 2 years, we found out, yeah, you know what, it wasn't the smoothest. There was some problems. They couldn't really mesh it. And maybe when we watched it, kind of to me like Dark World, when we heard about all these problems, kind of in the middle, but then a lot after, oh yeah, this is why to me it's a weaker entry because they just weren't functioning at all facilities. Now here's the other thing too. Let's say She-Hulk is like that. Let's say it's considered, even though it was always so funny. People said, man, when are we going to get the first ever run, movie in the MCU? And we got that with Eternals. You know what happened? Nothing. Spider-Man came out and we moved on. It's the same way as I say now, the good thing about the MCU having so much stuff, it's like comic books that if you have one that comes out, whether you like it or not, you either keep reading it or you don't, and you move on to the next thing. That's the way Marvel's functioning right now with these. If She-Hulk does come out, and let's say we think, oh man, they really missed the mark with that one. I don't think it's going to take down the MCU. Now I would refer back to be like, okay, yeah, they need to improve here, here, here. But to me, I need a lot more than even just one show. Even like Eternals, I was not a fan of that movie. I think it did make some mistakes in the MCU, but I haven't written off the entire MCU. There was a time where, okay, if they do a lot of mistakes in a row, I might start to worry. But then we got No Way Home, and that was a gift. So they right away they proved me wrong. Anytime I start to worry, and you know what, maybe get She-Hulk, and it's not the greatest, but I'll still wait and see. I'm very interested by the show. I do hope that they got that budget for CGI though, because I want She-Hulk to be looking good, and if she's standing out the whole time is not looking good and she's a primarily CGI character, that could be a tough thing. So,
and I think the question all in the game is asking is like how many of the 10 episodes is She-Hulk going to be CGI? SPub saying maybe 9, most likely 10 out of 10. I think it's going to be one of those things, and I think again this is going to be more episodes just because if it's a sitcoms are usually 30 minutes at that point, and not as the comedy would be a longer stint, kind of like WandaVision was kind of like that kind of dark comedy that ended up kind of being a little more action at the end. But it's going to be interesting. Again, I've said it before when she was cast, I'm a Tatiana Maslany stan. I think she's an outstanding actress. I think people who have not seen Orphan Black, you need to see some of that because this woman has done so many different personalities. The fact that she hasn't got as much work, to really come out at this point, become a namesake is, I think this is going to be a good moment for her. But, like with everything, they're in reshoots. Brent and I have said it before. Marvel expects this. Marvel purchases in the budget. So the fact that they're doing some major stuff, it could just mean certain things that they tried before weren't working at that point. Now they're trying to improve upon it. So, if it ends up being the last live action Disney Plus show of the
it's that bad. They don't make any more Disney Plus shows. Bob Chap is like, that's it, you're done. I saw She-Hulk, no more. Cancel Secret Invasion. No Loki season 2.
We're bringing back MODOK, the animated series. We're bringing that back.
Well, just think, what they're going to do is She-Hulk. There's going to be an episode where she's defending Ralph Boner for working with Agatha. Wouldn't that be exciting? Oh man, I'd actually really like that.
No, she's got to defend Red Fox. We all know she's got to defend Red Fox. Come on. Oh. All right, so we'll see. But again, that is all news for right now. So let us move into feedback from last week. So we got some questions coming in. While I start pulling up fact or fictions from last week.
All right, first up from Travis Hines. If the Netflix shows do great numbers on Disney Plus, even generate some subscriptions, would that make Feige and company consider making the shows canon with the MCU, or do you think they have their minds made up regardless and wouldn't change course? For me personally, I think they already know whether or not they're going to be considered all or partially canon. And currently, as of today, I'm feeling like it's going to be kind of one of those things where pseudo canon, like they're not really going to contradict the shows, but they're not going to directly pull from them either, outside of general relationships of like Daredevil and Kingpin.
I agree. I think you can get some good viewership out of those. I think the number of people subscribing to watch those is very, very finite. I think they would already watch them on Netflix or subscribe there.
I would love to know how they're doing. I want someone to say how they're doing.
Yeah, and that's always a problem too, where we talk about numbers with streaming. We get stuff like Samba, but those are only estimates, right, and things like that. So I think I agree with Brent that it will be, mentioning some, not mentioning everything, but they already have a plan. They already had a plan. Feige and team are usually most time not ones to react. Now, when something like, hey, we got the rights to Spider-Man, yeah, of course you're gonna pivot. But little stuff like, oh yeah, Defenders is being watched, they might just be like, great. We already introduced Charlie Cox. We already introduced Vincent D'Onofrio before that. Like, if they weren't in, then sure. But Charlie Cox and Vincent already came, right? So they clearly already have a plan. So
yeah, and again, to that plan, to that idea, everything's done with a purpose, and they've seen the fan reaction of what little we have seen of both Wilson Fisk and Matt Murdock coming back in for the small sequences they did have. It's been great. So they know they had it stuff. And this has been a long plan. I mean, Charlie Cox has been on the record of saying he's known for a very long time, a couple of years, that he was coming back. It's a very big waiting game at that point. And now the moment is here. So I've said it before and I'll keep with it. I think it's going to be a soft reboot in the sense of some things are going to be slightly canon. Other things are just not going to be talked about. Kind of like, He Who Shall Not Be Named.
Kang or Voldemort?
Or Ralph
well, apparently whoever he's playing in Creed 3, because that man, I don't want to mess with his gang if he's already rocking that.
No, traveling time gets you gains, apparently.
Woo, boy.
Yeah.
All right, next up from S-Bubs. What's the holdup with the Love and Thunder trailer? Do you think it might need more time for CGI, contain something that could spoil an upcoming project, or just waiting for the right time to release it? Do we think it might be delayed? What do you guys think?
I think Taika's pretty much gone on record. Like he's been tongue in cheek about it, but he last time he said no, I edited to the day before at that point. and again, I think this movie, I don't think there's going to be delay with this movie. I think they're just kind of figuring out when to put this out at that point with giving, we've said it before. They do not like promoting too many things all at once. And not that they're saying, well, why don't they put it out, now? Well, again, it's this understanding, like Multiverse is going to have its moment. I still hold to the idea that sometime in April, we're going to get our first trailer. That's I feel pretty confident in that fact.
I pretty much agree. I guess if you had to put a gun in my head, I could actually see them waiting till after Moon Knight, just because they got Moon Knight, they got Strange. I do think they will want a Thor trailer with Doctor Strange. They just usually like that synergy. Yeah. I was very surprised when we didn't get a Doctor Strange trailer with No Way Home, and guess what? We did. It was just at the end of the movie, right? So there's usually Marvel's been going on the MCU's been going on for a long time now, but most time there's usually a preview for the next one. Why? Because they know they have a core audience that likes these things, and even if it's general audience, I didn't know there was a Thor movie coming out in a couple months. Great, I'll go see that. So I'll at least say before Doctor Strange, and I think I agree with Chris. It's just they don't want to. I feel like you don't want to promote Moon Knight, Doctor Strange, and Thor all at one time. Just wait a little bit. Wait 5 more weeks, and then you're in the clear. Maybe they'll even do it sooner than that because Moon Knight is. You got 5 weeks, so maybe they might want to. I'm trying to think. Yeah, that might be too much math for me to do right now, but you'll get it next 5 weeks. That's what I'll say. Next 5 weeks.
I don't know. It's kind of funny because I'm starting to see people ask more and more about it, like they did with the Spider-Man one, and I'm like, you already know you're going. You've already bought your ticket, as far as metaphorically. Like, they don't have to convince you. It's okay. The trailer's not for us anyway. The trailer is to convince the general audience. That said, I think the absolute latest is probably May 2nd, May 3rd, which is the Monday and Tuesday prior to Doctor Strange coming out. Mm-hmm. It's 100 days away, so I mean we're not that far away, but we have Moon Knight that just started. We have Doctor Strange. We have Ms. Marvel. Like there's still 3 projects in front of it to go. Yeah. It's like if you were to take out the shows and just think of movies and go 3 movies out, you wouldn't be that surprised that you're still waiting on it. And at the same time, they're still kind of catching everything up from like the big lead they got during the pandemic when they were holding everything back, but they were still producing content. I don't. Well, part of me is like, who cares? Don't even show the trailer. Just it's not Spider-Man, so they should. But it's
they still didn't take our advice. Maybe this time they will.
Well, maybe if they had, they would have hit $2 billion. But the bottom line is, we'll see it. It'll be soon. It'll probably be before Moon Knight's over. I really think, and I don't know what week is supposed to be the last episode of Moon Knight. I haven't counted out, but like May 2nd and May 3rd, that Monday, Tuesday, I think is the absolute latest you'll be waiting to get this trailer.
I also think, to your point, that I think they learned something with No Way Home, and I think they always knew this, but No Way Home, there's when's the next trailer, when's the next trailer. The second we had no more trailers for No Way Home, it was, well, when's the Doctor Strange trailer? I think they are now purposely, because back in the day, we used to get 3 trailers, 3 proper trailers. Most companies are starting to go back to just doing 2 trailers for a big movie, especially Marvel lately has just been doing 2 big ones, and then you got a bunch of TV spots. I think there's a chance that they are purposely like, oh, we could release it now, but let's just wait till more people are asked about, more people, because then even Thor: Love and Thunder, which I think is a big film, I don't think it's as big event as some of the Marvel and DC, and even just like something like Avatar coming out, right? But I think the more, if you get people like in the online sphere asking, where's the trailer, it makes it feel like a bigger deal than it actually is. So I feel like some of that is conscious of what they're doing of like holding it back. So it's 2 days before Doctor Strange. Okay, so
Yeah,
that's the Moon Knight finale. So yeah, it would probably be dropping sometime within that week or so. So
All right, one more question.
I've kind of thought this too all in the game. Sony might be kicking themselves for being so close yet so far from that 2 billion mark.
I mean, there's nothing else they could have done. Honestly, like all jokes aside, I think they marketed the hell out of that movie, and I think it's a fascinating and it's super successful campaign. They didn't get a China release. Marvel movies tend to do great in China. They would have hit 2 billion if they had released that thing in China last December. Wasn't up to them.
Yep. So, yeah. And what's our last question?
From Red Arrow, are you guys excited for the upcoming Marvel games, Spider-Man 2 and the Wolverine? What stories do you think they will tell?
Spider-Man 2 is pretty obvious.
I mean, it's got to be picking up with like Harry Osborn as Venom, right?
There's Kraven definitely in that dialogue.
You may not be wrong about Harry Osborn as Venom, picking from the Ultimate Spider-Man TV show.
Well, I mean, that's basically what the game alluded to at the end of it.
Yeah, so I think that their Wolverine, God, you go so many directions. I think...
Dang, you can make him globetrot and do some of his greatest hits of comics. That would be really cool at that point.
And that's my thing. It's like you also, do you tackle before he meets the X-Men or after he meets the X-Men? You know, I feel like maybe it's after so they can have some fun Easter eggs, and there's probably some good mission where you can go to the X-Mansion. But primarily the story is, hey, you know, Dakin's out there, and I gotta go find him. Because I always like to work in Dakin. But no, I think that Wolverine, I think that's a crapshoot in a good way. There's tons to pull from. It's really all over the map. I couldn't tell you with just the one little teaser we saw of him in the bar, right? That could be another origin. So, but yeah, Spider-Man. The only thing I think this is the hold off on Goblin and use him for the 3rd game. But Venom's clearly gonna be the big bad here, whether it's Harry or Eddie or whoever it may be.
I am excited for these. I don't have a PS5 currently. I will get one around the time. I will get one for Spider-Man. That's when I will get a PS5. So here, I know people are still struggling to find them. I'm not worried about it yet. There's time. There's all the shortages for the components and chips and stuff like that. There's
Spider-Man edition has to be it though.
If they have a Spider-Man edition, yes, I will 100% get it. I will not buy one until I know there's not a Spider-Man edition coming, or the Spider-Man 2 game comes out, whichever one comes first. But if I'm not going to wait to play the game, but I will go that long. If they're going to put out a Spider-Man edition, it'll be paired with that game. It'll cost way too much money, and I will pay for it.
I've said they are complete idiots if they do not make a Venom version of the PS5.
I would have liked the Miles Morales one. But yeah,
watch them do 3 versions of the console. You know that'll sell.
Well, I'm only gonna buy one of them just to be clear.
I know,
but
you know that if they're not thinking that idea, they're idiots at that point. But it's Sony, so here we are.
Different branch of Sony, though.
That's true. All right, so fact or fictions from last week's. Number 1, Monica Rambeau will appear in Miss Marvel. 80% said fact, 20% said fiction. What do you say, Travis?
Yeah, I thought that was a fact, because if you guys haven't checked out me and the Geekverse, we did an MCU draft, and she was almost on my list for that reason, because you get surprise appearance points, so they're a bit more of a bonus. So I think it's very possible that you could get both of them, but she could make an appearance because we have not seen her in a little bit. So I guess it's only been a year, but still, in MCU terms, a few projects, you know, so. Oh, good. Back up to 20. Good. It's gone up from 16 to 19.
Morbius
the
up
Morbius edition of
20%, yes.
PS5. Oh boy, yeah.
Oh boy.
That'll be a hotcake salad. That might
Will
sound less.
Will it
than
come
the
with the
movie.
dumpster smell and the fire coming from it at that point?
He'll come with Jared Leto and he'll stall it himself, and then like, hey, you want to come to my 30 second to Mars?
No.
cult?
That would be legendary.
Yeah, that would be
yeah.
that'd, legendary something. Number 2, The Incredible Hulk will be on Disney Plus before any of the Spider-Man movies. 44% said fact, 56% said fiction. A lot closer than I thought it would be.
Yeah, I think I agreed with the fiction just because we keep hearing all these like little murmurs, but they're only from little like scoopers of like, oh, they've worked something out with Paramount, but nothing like I feel like if it would have happened, one of the bigger scoopers would have came and said, yeah, they've worked out. So just because eventually that deal will run where some of those movies will end up on Disney Plus. So I said fiction, but watch tomorrow they'll announce Incredible Hulk's back.
Number 3, Deadpool will appear in What If Season 3 and be voiced by Ryan Reynolds. 85% said fact, 15% said fiction.
Make it happen.
Agreed.
And my last one, because we can't talk enough about Morbius on this episode, Michael Keaton will only appear as Adrian Toomes in Morbius credit scene or scenes and not in anything else in the main film. 86% said fact, 14% said fiction.
No spoilers. No spoilers.
No,
if you've been
spoilers.
looking at the spoilers out there, because
Nope.
apparently the directors just decided to talk about everything. So, and I have managed to stay in the Morbius bubble.
Oh yeah,
I want to
same
go
here.
into this train wreck pure.
Yeah. Yep, I have not seen anything, not heard anything. I just heard, man, he's spilling everything in that movie. Why bother seeing it? Said, well, I want to see it just because to lay his eyes on it.
Yeah.
No comment.
No comment. Okay, no
No
comment.
comment. So somebody has looked at the spoilers and knows the answer. That's
Yes,
right. No
so-
comment.
I've not seen them all, but I saw enough to go, oh boy.
So you
Oh,
know the
boy.
answer to that. That's fine.
Oh boy.
All right, so Mr. Snell,
Mhm.
Factor Fictions for you this week.
Okay, well, I kind of tried to hit a bunch of tiers here. So let's start with an easy one, but still fun one. Brent famously said before episode 100, we would get an announcement of Spider-Man 4 with
Oh,
Tom
boy.
Holland. or no
Jerk.
So I'm gonna do something similar, and I'm gonna say before Thor: Love and Thunder, we will hear announcements of Spider-Man 4 because
All right.
my working theory is, let's say Toby is in Doctor Strange, that counts as the next appearance,
It
and then
does.
they need
It
a new
would.
they need a new deal,
I
right?
still don't think so.
That's my whole theory of why they have announced something, because they need to do this deal first, and then when that's done, they'll officially put something out there. So
It
that's
could
my
be.
thing.
Watch it be Tom Holland and Doctor Strange. Like
Yeah.
the one time people might be a little disappointed with a Tom Holland Spider-Man appearance. Not me. I'd be thrilled. But
And it easily could be because he could just be playing a variant, right? He could easily just
Yeah.
could be playing the Marvel Zombies What If version of with the cape and everything. Like
Sure.
it could be Tom Holland. And because I've always said this, that I just don't know where, if it's not in Doctor Strange, where the next Spider-Man appearance really fits, other than like an end credit or some big crossover we don't know, like an Avengers. Like if you look at what's announced so far, I don't see anything. I know people go Deadpool 3. I don't see them putting it there just because it would be radar. So before Thor: Love and Thunder, we'll get the Spider-Man 4 announcement.
I'm gonna say
Let's
fiction.
keep it going.
I'm gonna say it's fiction. I do not think there's any spider characters in Multiverse of Madness. Would I be upset with one in there? Any of them? No, I would. Absolutely not. But I think no. I do not think we're gonna get any sort of announcement of that until around Into the Spider-Verse.
Into the Spider-Verse. Asbub says, you see Toby's suit, this theme plays, he takes off his mask, it's Tom Holland, and then everyone boos in the theater. I added that part.
No, I got a better one for you. You hear the music in Toby's suit, and it's Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin. Ah!
There you go. I'm going to go ahead and say fact on this one because you've given 3 months more to my timeline there. So I'm going to say fact, and that would be. I mean, Doctor Strange is in 37 days, so a couple months after Strange, I could see it happening.
I'm going to say fact as well. I'm 50-50 on there being a Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, but I want to believe, and like I said, it's just looking at the slate, being like, I don't know where a Spider-Man appearance fits. It fits here. I want Toby because I love Toby, but I also just want that Toby Sam Raimi kind of reunion. So that I'm going fact as well. You mentioned Deadpool last week, so I'm going to bring him back. We've heard about director. There's been some kind of little scoopers being like, oh, look out for holiday season. So some people are kind of trying to put out there that maybe in the fall or December, there could be like some shooting of Deadpool 3. That's great. Once they're on set, I'll fully believe they're going. We got a director, so I'm more convinced. But it's all a question of, continuity, what they're going to do. So Josh Brolin and Zazie Beetz will be in Deadpool 3. So that's Domhnall and Cable. And both, not one or the other. Both of them will be in Deadpool
both?
3. Yeah, both. And it has to be new footage, not like a flash, like using the old scenes. Like, it has to be new footage with both of them.
Damn, why would you say both?
Because it makes it that much harder.
I want Josh Brolin in. And I want someone to be like, man, you seem really familiar.
Because you look at Deadpool 2, it ends with them being their own family.
Fingers,
right?
Nothing's happening.
Yeah. It ends with them being like a family and a unit. So you'd have to maybe explain, like, why aren't they together? Why are, things like that.
Wasn't there a rumor a while back about Brolin being interested in coming back or something like that?
Oh, yeah, he said he would be very interested in coming back.
I'm going fact. Make it happen. Bring back Cable.
Yeah, at that point, I think it is one thing that even if it's just for a quick 5-minute cameo of any of them at that point, I think it's just more. That's what makes Deadpool in the movies so fun at that point. The tongue-in-cheek references, calling them back in just for that quick of a scene, or even for the full time. But yeah, I'm gonna go fact because I love the idea. It leans hard into what they do.
5-minute cameo though? No, call the movie Cable and Deadpool like the comic series. Let's get him in there.
Yeah.
Let's get him in there.
Yes, obviously at that point I would love that. I'm just saying if I'm being greedy, yes. If I'm being realistic,
realistic, yeah, we don't do that.
Yeah,
I'll take the other route. I'll go fiction. I don't think you get them both. I think Domino's maybe the one that misses out this time. I could see it happen later on.
Next time.
Yeah, I could see it happen later on. But I also have a big theory too that Deadpool 3, it's Deadpool 3, but you might not see a lot of those characters. Now Ryan Reynolds this week was already hinting that you might see Blind Owl. So I could be completely wrong. I just feel like if it is still under Feige's banner, he's gonna want to not change some things, but maybe do some things. I still want him to be fighting to get into this universe. That's what I would love it if for some reason the Fox universe is closing and it's a kill the universe. But yeah, I'm gonna say fiction on both of them. But I'd love to be proven wrong because they're both great. So keeping with the theme of Moon Knight and the celebration of that, Moon Knight will appear 2 more times in Phase 4. So this could be end credit, this could be a cameo, this could be in someone's show, a co-lead role, whatever. But 2 times. I didn't pick one because that's easy. That could easily just be in one little scene. Boom. 2 times. 2 separate projects, obviously, viewers and listeners.
Fiction.
Yeah, fiction for me too. I say 1.
Mm-hmm.
If that.
I'm fiction as well because I do think for sure 1. I haven't placed where. I guess it's all a question to me too of like where does Blade actually come out? Like they're making a Blade movie, but is that going to count as Phase 4 or is that going to count as Phase 5? We don't know the official endpoint of Phase 4, so I'm taking Blade as like not a confirm, but a very likely end credit and stuff like that. Otherwise, I'm not sure where else, but you never know. I never thought Abomination was going to fight in a prison in Shang-Chi, and it just popped up, right? So with the MCU, people can just pop up randomly. So I'll say fiction, but I'm not a hard fiction. Sorry.
Maybe I could see him popping up in the Werewolf by Midnight show, which apparently I saw reports started filming today.
Yep.
So maybe in that would be a good opportunity. All in the Game just said the same thing. Be a good opportunity for him to pop up. Otherwise, I don't know where else either. But one more time does feel likely.
Mm-hmm. Well, there you go. Yeah. That's my fact of fictions for episode 100.
Yeah, and I think we're all thinking Phase 4 does end with Fantastic Four. I think that is the surefire.
That welcome back to the movies or celebrate the movies trailer thing they put out a while ago ended with a Fantastic Four logo. So that's my assumption.
Yeah. So, all right, I will post those Sunday afternoon and let your voices be heard and votes be heard on that one. And let's take our last ad break before we head into Comic Book Club. So, listeners, you got the ads, you got the volume. Turn that down so that it doesn't blow out your eardrums. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. All right. Issue 2, Spider Shadow. We both said that this cover was pretty haunting at that point, and the issue itself, in my opinion, double down on what we saw at the end of issue 1.
Yeah, it's definitely dark. I like the I like the look of this symbiote Spider-Man costume. Like he's not quite as big as Venom, but he's bigger than Peter Parker normally looks. There's just this tiny hint of red in the what's normally white spider. I really like the design of this particular symbiote spider costume. Not to mention the face looks different because he's got like the eyes and then kind of what looks like an extra mouth or something going on there.
Definitely, it's got the kind of like the more of the arachnid kind of face. So especially not only just basically breaking Jonah's hands at that point, telling you write another story about me again, you get another facts wrong about me again, and I'll do more than breaking your hand, but that the creepiness factor of him just basically over his bed and all the symbiote goo just holding him up at that point. I mean, that's just like, I don't know how Mary Jane wanted to continue being in that room.
So that reminded me of a shot from the Clone Saga where he's like cocooned himself in the bedroom and she walks in and is shocked by it, which, any reference to the Clone Saga, real or not, I'm going to appreciate.
you and clones at that point. But the fact of not only is he crushed Hobgoblin, he's basically torn off the arm tail of Shocker and Scorpion and just punched in Kingpin's face.
Yeah, I mean, just that scene where he walks in and just like throws down the Shocker and Shocker's arm, Scorpion's tail, just disgusting, right? Like, I'm like, oh man, Peter, you are off the deep end, and we're only in the second issue of this thing. Yeah,
I think if Reed's saying I'm worried he's going to get close to being permanently bonded with him. Oh, I think we're there. I'm not worried anymore. I think we're there at this point. But how about it's, Jonah basically getting all these criminals to say, okay, you need to take him down. You need to take him down now. But how about that ending shot of who literally stabs Otto in the back?
Yeah, definitely a bit of a surprise on that one. And I mean, the art on it really, really, really strong. So, but I mean, if that's how they're going to bring in Eddie, all right, that's different, but I like it.
Yeah, so, Peter's continuing down the darker path. We've got issue 3 next week. We'll see how much darker Peter can get in this series. But yeah, like I said, this is a really, really welcoming update to the what if kind of concept. So,
definitely.
Travis, you stayed silent on it. I know you may have not read it. Have you ever read this series or?
No, I don't think I have. If I have, it's never been the full thing, but it sounds little disturbing.
It's been pretty good.
So, yeah.
If you want a dark, creepy Spider-Man story, this appears to be it.
I'm always down for dark, creepy Spider-Man. And
I've heard that about you.
Yep. Creepy. So, all right. Well, episode volume 100 is officially in the bag. Some people have accused us, you just wanted to talk about Moon Knight so you wouldn't have episode 100 being Morbius. So I said, that may be true. You're out of line, but you're not wrong.
But we've set a precedent when there's a new movie and a Disney Plus show active at the same time. This is not the first time we've done this.
No, it's not. And again, if DC Alliance wants to come after us, you've got those Superman and Lois's you've been doing quite regularly. So,
Yeah. They got a lot to worry about over there at DC. Their slate's getting delayed.
Yeah, give them a break. They need it.
Their stars getting up to mischief every fucking week. So you know what? They don't have much to say over there.
I like how you label it as mischief. Yeah,
that's a nice way of putting it.
That is very nice. That's being
Clay's getting bombarded by people. Clay, he didn't like Florence Pugh as I'm wearing a hashtag #PBoy shirt right now. He didn't like Crazy Elena. So him giving crap about Barry as the Joker. Don't trust that man with casting. Don't do it. But you know what? Listen to the show because it's always worth the hot takes.
Yes, there we go. Yes. So, well, thank you, Travis. I really appreciate you coming back on. I know it's not necessarily too big of an ask at that point, but wouldn't be the 100th episode without you.
Oh yeah, no, it was tons of fun. Like I said, I love doing this. It was a happy coincidence when we did look, and it was Moon Knight, and it's something that we've been talking about for a while. I remember that when I was working the late nights, and I called in when Moon Knight was cast the Oscar, as I called in from my little office on my phone. So it's come a long way from that, but I'm excited for another 100. I'll be back. Oh God, I'm not sure. I'll be back next month at some point. I guess there'll be more Moon Knight. We'll be close to the Strange. Strange. So yeah, it's just gonna be a fun time. Marvel, like there's so much stuff coming out, and at the end, yeah, we have some fun with Morbius, but it is a new Marvel movie, and whether you like it or not, you know what? Just go try to have some fun, get some popcorn. It's better than having no Morbius movie. That's what I'll try to tell myself. But you got Doctor Strange, Miss Marvel, Thor. I'm sure casting announcements, trailer. It's going to be a good year. We're just starting. So
Yep, it is. So tell people how they can follow you.
At Travis B. Snell, you can find everything I'm doing, whether I guest on here, whether I'm getting into my own nice mischief at Keepers, yeah, check me out there.
Gotcha. Brent?
Yeah, BrentTech Prime on Twitter, on TikTok. Genuinely looking forward to Morbius tomorrow night. You know, it's going to be a good time. I'm so excited for it. I moved up my showtime almost 2 hours so I can get there even quicker.
I am not moving up my showtime because my kids are going to play soccer, and I'm going to do the dad thing first before I go see Morbius. So
there you go.
But yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Chris Balga. You can follow my other show, World's Finest True Believers, at Finest Believers. You can follow this show at Marvel A Podcast. You can email the show at marvelalliancepodcast@gmail.com. You can follow the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network at GUA Pod Network. Feel free to tweet, email if you want to provide feedback, ask questions, fact or fictions. Continue to rate and review the Marvel Alliance solo feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever podcatcher choice may be. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for joining us in the chat. Thank you all for staying with us for 100 episodes, whether you've been there since the beginning, came in the middle, or just joining us tonight or whenever you listen to this. We really appreciate it. We look forward to having you continue on our journey. Stay safe out there, everyone. And as Stan the Man would say, Excelsior, true believers. Well, we've continued talking about Morbius. Why not?
We're not done with them yet.
We're not done with them yet. We've got to get final predictions for whether it be things we see in the show, things we see in the movie, and that box office, that first weekend box office.
Well, I appreciate Espo's all the game, that whole episode updating us on the Rotten Tomatoes score, going up and down, hovering between a huge 20% to 16%. So lots of ground being covered there. So there's reports of anywhere from 30 to 50 million. And so it's funny, we were talking about this before we went on air, that Brent, same thing, he got tickets earlier. And I had the same thing where I already bought tickets. I made my plan, so I couldn't go earlier. But they add some other showings, like, oh, darn. And I was like, they must have done that because at least they're saying, well, because I remember that happened with No Way Home, right? Where No Way Home was selling, they added showings because they want to get people in. Not the case in my theater. My theater is so where I live, the theater that this one's at, each showing has 100 people you can do. So there's 6 showings tomorrow. That's 600 people. And I went to each showing. Now, obviously, probably changed by time. There'll be some other walk-ins, but as right now, there's 28 tickets sold between all the showings. That's including my tickets, and that's me, myself, and my lady. So I'm very curious to see where, Chris, you showed yours, and it was looking pretty healthy. Like, it looked like that's a good crowd.
That's a 7:00 showing. The other showing right now, and that's a standard theater at that point. It was 4:00. I didn't check out that one, but yeah, most of the main section is sold.
And to put it in perspective, Chris lives in a much bigger place than me. But like when No Way Home came out, all those were sold out. When Batman was here, it was like 75% full. Like when it's a big movie and people are excited, people are gonna they will show up even in Little Kelowna, BC. So I'm very curious. I love box office, and not in the way where people like Dick measures on. It is, to me, that's the sport aspect of like you get to see what does the audience genuinely want to see or is interested in, right? I would have never thought both times Venom was going to be such a huge hit, and it was. So I know, you know what? Even if myself, I don't like him that much, people want to see Venom. They want to see Tom Hardy. I can't tell them not to make a third. So with this one, I'm always curious just because I've always wondered the star power of Jared Leto, because I know people go, oh, look at Suicide Squad. You also had Will Smith. You also had Margot Robbie coming off Wolf of Wall Street. You had Batman in it. Jared Leto to me has never been a massive draw. This is a vampire movie, which I feel like the genre is like not the hottest. Like it's just it's around. Like Twilight happened, it kind of died. So I'm hovering right now. If we're gonna, so are we doing Price is Right rules? If someone's over, they've lost. Or are we just going who's closest?
Sure.
I need an okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say whoever's closest.
I'm gonna go 43 million. I don't think it's gonna get 50. I think it could be higher than that 33. But if it is 33, that one initial projection, it's gone up. But if it was that would not be good. I think that would really not be good. As we've talked about before, the Marvel kind of standard had seemed like 60 million and plus. They've all varied throughout that. So I think if they could hit 50, a good enough success, but yeah, I'll go 43, somewhere in the middle.
I will go 40 million.
40 million. Okay.
Yep, I'll do 40 million at that point. Yeah, I think 33 is a little too low. I think it's going to do better than the 33. I think 33 would just be like, oh my God, what did we just release at that point? Okay, yeah, the Batman's still out in theaters, but again,
it's been out for a month now.
Yeah, it's been out for a month. It's
no excuses.
Yeah, it's a couple of weeks away from HBO Max debut at that point, but I think it's going to do basically around 40, 41, something like that. So,
well, I was looking when I initially bought my tickets. There was something like 6 or 7 showtimes. A couple of those were IMAX. I looked. The IMAX appears to be ballpark 30% full. That's pretty light for an opening night movie. Whereas like for Spider-Man No Way Home, for Batman, they were more like the 70 to 80% full. Now they've added more shows. There's 15 showtimes for Morbius compared to Batman's 19. Spider-Man I think was 21. So it's hard. It's like on one hand, it's like, well, you're given an awful lot of showtimes. On the other, it's under 2 hours, so it's like, who knows? I'm going to go ahead and say, like, S-Bub said 37, and I was thinking along the lines of about 38 to 38.5. I'm going to go ahead and call it 38 million. I will be pretty surprised. If it hits 38 million domestic, it's on the number I found for the budget was 75. It could end up turning a profit worldwide when all is said and done. They could get there. We'll see if that happens. That said, 20% Rotten Tomatoes, wrong or right, people will use it as a factor in their decision making when they're putting their own money and their own time down. And
the other thing is,
S-Bub points out Sonic comes out next week.
Yeah.
I mean,
yes.
I know people are like, what the big deal, right? No, Sonic 1 was like a genuinely fun movie. So it's like my wife said tonight, like, can we just go opening night and then take the kids another time so we can enjoy it without them? I'm like, actually, no, that's not going to work for us. But
I like where your head is at, though.
Oh yeah, no, that would I guarantee we do that for Lightyear. But it's Sonic 2, like, I'm genuinely looking forward to that movie. I know, like, my son wants to see it. He's excited. I showed him the trailer for it. And my daughter doesn't like any movies, but she'll go for the popcorn. Like, there's not going to be Morbius.
It's 1 week.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of, because, like, Batman's still there. Spider-Man's still there, Sing 2 is out now. Like, there are other movies out that are going to, like, draw people towards them away from this random character that nobody's heard of.
Yeah, S-Bub's made the point that I was going to, where it's not like the Batman where it came out. You had Turning Red, which was on Disney Plus, and then it just finally lost its first weekend to Lost City, and that was 4 weeks later, right? This is, you got Sonic's 2, and yeah, there haven't been the greatest as far as word of mouth, but you have the next Fantastic Beast coming out. That's a Harry Potter reference. You still have, it's not even a massive movie, but you got like a new Michael Bay movie, which always surprisingly they do well. Like, you have other things coming out in April that will distract it. So I really think, at least in North America, it has to make the bulk of its money the first week, unless it's some surprise hit, which seemingly it's not as far as critics. Maybe fans will be different. Look at Venom. Venom doesn't have as low as ratings as Morbius, but Venom, I'm pretty sure, is Rotten on Rotten Tomatoes. So sometimes speaking of Michael Bay, Transformers. So this could come out, but right now projections around then. And yeah, with Sonic, I don't think so we're just putting what I was going to say. Yeah, Sonic and family films and the ratings, I don't think they care that much, because it's just like, we liked the first one, let's go see the other one. And again, I also don't think too many families are going to Morbius, so there's maybe not a huge crossover there, but yeah, I can't wait to see what it does. It could easily have a low one. It could be like, unfortunately, I did like the movie, but it was like when we got those Suicide Squad numbers last year, I was shocked how low. Yes, it was rated R. Yes, it was coming from a movie that to me is very mixed to bad reactions from fans and critics. And yeah, it was on HBO Max. There's tons of like reasons why, but I was shocked it was still that low. I was still surprised. So it could be that where Morbius comes in even lower than what Brent has as, and I feel very sad that I'm the one that has the highest, and here I am.
I'm thinking about it, it's like the whole Sonic thing. It's like, you're right. There's probably not a lot of families going to it, but like there's only so much time in the weekend, right?
Yes.
And for a lot of parents, it's a lot easier just to take their kids to see Sonic than to find babysitters, to pay babysitters to go see Morbius. I'm lucky. My mother-in-law's watching the kids. It's not costing me any extra money. It's not costing me anything extra outside like the popcorn I buy to go check out Morbius. That's not the case, and it's not good. How much money did Suicide Squad make opening weekend? Was it like 26,
It's like
27?
25 or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my god. Shit. Seriously, Morbius is going to make more than Suicide Squad opening weekend. Oh my
Well,
god.
you're not for sure yet. You never know.
No,
There's
it might
always-
not. Well, if not, I'm closest, so I hope it doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, we
we'll
will
see.
see. We will see not only how we feel, but the next Marvel Alliance. I will guarantee you one of our news items will be how bad or good did Morbius do at the box
Yeah.
office. So with that, Moon Knight episode 2, thank you all. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.